Hey truckers, here is part 5 of My Dad is My Mom's Mortal Enemy. Let's dive into the video. His current identity was Underground Dad. This identity might continue for quite a long time. Because he hadn't even made it to Underground Lover yet. At least before he had been an Underground Lover. The more he tried to advance, the more he regressed. That described him exactly. Xiao Qingzhe returned Xiao's firm in the afternoon. When Kong Yichan saw him come, she picked up a stack of files piled on the table, got up and called Mr. Xiao. The boss didn't come for a long time. Things that needed to be dealt with had already piled up like a mountain. Xiao Qingzhe glanced at her and asked, "Why didn't you take time off?" A week before Children's Day on June 1st, Xiao's firm had sent a notice to all employees that those with children in 6th grade or below, including 6th grade, could take paid time off that day, and that one day off would not count towards annual leave or make-up days. Taking time off on Children's Day would become a company convention and be included in the company charter. When the notice was issued, it caused quite a stir in the company. Those with young children all wanted to spend Children's Day with their kids that day. If it wasn't a Saturday or Sunday, they could only ask for leave, which meant less pay on one hand, and most importantly, they had to look at the leader's face. What was supposed to be a happy day spent with the children became disheartening if they met an unaccommodating leader. Even if they got the day off, it left them feeling unhappy. This move won Xiao Qingzhe a large portion of the frontline employees' hearts. Although Mr. Xiao looked cold and stern on the outside, strict and ruthless, the things he did still had a human touch. Some said this must have to do with Mr. Xiao's newborn daughter, otherwise how could the high and mighty boss suddenly be down to earth and consider things on behalf of the employees? Others said, never mind what it's related to, we're the ones who benefit from it in the end. What's wrong with being able to accompany your child for a day effortlessly? Why overthink it? Kong Yichan also felt it was good. She had planned for the day to be perfect, but she had an argument with her husband last night. In a huff, she came to work to let him take time off without pay to accompany their kid. She wanted to come to the company, enjoy the air conditioning, eat in the company canteen, and listen to gossip about the boss. The boss's mouth injury hadn't healed yet, and his fingers had new teeth marks. The 3 young assistants whispered among themselves, wondering if the boss was haggard these days because he overindulged himself and was weakened. Kong Yichan didn't think the boss's poor complexion was due to overindulgence. He was probably still quite far from that point. Miss Ching probably only acknowledged him as her child's father and refused to discuss anything else. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come to the company this afternoon and would have been happily spending the holiday with his daughter in his arms and her mother by his side instead. Kong Yichan followed the boss into the office and answered his question, "Her dad is with her. I happen to have some work to deal with, so I came to the company." Xiao Qingzhe nodded slightly to indicate he understood, took off his suit jacket and casually draped it over the chair back, rolled up his sleeves halfway and asked, "What did you need me for?" "These are documents that need your approval." "Okay, leave them there." "Mr. Xiao, Chairman Fong from Lingqing wants to move tomorrow night's dinner to tonight because he has to go abroad temporarily. But tonight you have a family dinner with old Mr. Xiao, so I wanted to check with you?" "That works out just right. I'll tell the old master that I'm having dinner with Chairman Fong so I can't make it to his family dinner. That way you don't have to come up with another excuse." Old Mr. Xiao demanded that Mr. Xiao have dinner at home every Friday. But if Mr. Xiao could make it home once a month, that was considered good already. Whenever he didn't go back, old Mr. Xiao would call her and Kong Yichan couldn't relay Mr. Xiao's real reason of too lazy to go to old Mr. Xiao. She had to painstakingly come up with an excuse each time to save old Mr. Xiao's face. Kong Yichan replied, "Okay, Mr. Xiao." She was about to take her leave when the boss called her back. "Oh right, Kong, please help me buy an electric mosquito swatter." Kong Yichan raised her brows slightly. Mr. Xiao needed an electric mosquito swatter? Given his current icy expression, mosquitoes should give him a wide berth when they see him. "When do you need it by?" "Before I get off work today." Xiao Qingzhe flicked his lighter. "Get to." "All right, Mr. Xiao." Kong Yichan had always been very efficient. In less than an hour, she delivered 2 electric mosquito swatters to Mr. Xiao's office. Kong Yichan thought Mr. Xiao bought 2, one for the office and one for home. But in the end, Mr. Xiao took both with him when he left the office. This was Kong Yichan's first time seeing a boss carrying electric mosquito swatters. She felt that if the manufacturer saw this, they should pay a sky-high price to get him to endorse their product. When Mr. Xiao came out, the assistants immediately packed up and followed behind the boss. Mr. Xiao always took these two male assistants to various dinners and business occasions. Kang Yi-chan's classmates envied her for getting such a good boss who didn't drag her to all kinds of unsavory dinner parties. She also felt she had a decent boss. While the boss had high demands for work and certainly wasn't known for being sweet-talking, his integrity was undisputed. After the boss left, Kang Yi-chan also packed up and got off work. She was still mad at her husband, but she would go home early today and make a big dinner for their little cutie that was the best holiday gift for her daughter. When she went downstairs, she saw her husband hugging their daughter waiting downstairs. Her daughter was also holding a big bunch of roses. When she saw Kang Yi-chan come out, the little girl held out the roses to her mom. She said it was a Children's Day gift from Dad to Mom. Kang Yi-chan's remaining anger vanished when she saw her daughter and the flowers. She glared at her husband, but her eyes were smiling. Sitting in the car, Xiao Qingzhe saw the bunch of roses in Kang Yi-chan's arms. He tapped his knee pensively. Qing Liqui had spent the afternoon playing in the amusement park with her grandpa, grandma and mom. After dinner at a restaurant, they went to the movies. Qing Jinlan wanted to take Qing Liqui to watch a cartoon while Qing Shanhe rarely had time to go to the theater. So Qing Jinlan got tickets for her parents to see another movie, giving them a chance to go on a long-awaited movie date. Fei Zuhui complained this was an old married couple going on a date, but her hand was already happily hooked onto Qing Shanhe's arm. Qing Shanhe was very pleased with his daughter's arrangement. He patted his wife's hand and said, "Even when we're 70 or 80 years old, we've still got to date." Qing Liqui corrected her grandpa, "Grandma will never become an old lady. Grandma will always be 18. Because of what her granddaughter said, Fei Zuhui was all smiles, instantly 10 years younger. Qing Shanhe conceded defeat to his granddaughter's silver tongue. He didn't know who she took after. He knew his own daughter's personality, outwardly cold but inwardly passionate, who did more and talked less. Just looking at the Xiao kids' photos, he could tell he wasn't the sweet-talking type either. The cartoon ended early. Seeing Qing Liqui's eyes drooping with fatigue, Qing Jinlan texted her mom and took Qing Liqui home first. The little girl fell asleep in her car seat shortly after driving out of the theater. When Qing Jinlan saw the car parked in front of her home, she felt irritated. This wasn't even his home. Did he intend to come report in every day? And he parked so brazenly, afraid others wouldn't see him? Visit no.v3lb/n.cm for new OVL. Qing Jinlan stopped the car and got out. "If you keep coming, can you park in the back?" Xiao Qingzhe was startled at first, then the corners of his lips turned up. "Okay, I'll park in the back next time." Qing Jinlan was annoyed with herself for speaking rashly, making it seem like she was looking forward to his visits. Xiao Qingzhe took the initiative to explain his purpose in coming. "I came to deliver the electric mosquito swatter. Little Liqui asked me to buy this for her, said she wanted to help mommy get rid of mosquitoes." Qing Jinlan. She wanted to say, "There's no need to deliver it yourself, you swatting yourself would be best." Xiao Qingzhe opened the back door, his hand lingering over the flowers next to the electric mosquito swatter, but in the end he only took out the swatter. Qing Jinlan didn't take it. She remembered what she had put in her bag this morning. She took out the box from the passenger seat and returned it to him. Xiao Qingzhe didn't take it either. He could tell without looking that she hadn't even opened it. "Why didn't you open and take a look?" Qing Jinlan scoffed lightly. "Nothing worth looking at." She decided to have a calm discussion with him. "If you want to see Qing Liqui, we can set a fixed time every week, Saturday or Sunday. You can spend a day with her. That way you don't have to come here wasting time every day." Xiao Qingzhe sought out her gaze. "I don't feel it's a waste of time. I don't just want to see her, I also want to see you." Qing Jinlan cut him off. "Xiao Qingzhe, let's not talk about the past. Just looking at the nearly 7 years, many things could have changed. You have your life to live, and I have my life. A child's healthy growth doesn't require an intact family. If you work hard to be a good dad, I believe you will be one. And I will also strive to be a good mom. We maintain a peaceful relationship in front of Qing Liqui, so she can grow up happy and carefree. As for anything else, we really have no need to discuss further." Xiao Qingzhe took a step closer. "All right, let's not talk about the past, just the present. I can confirm that I still like you now, otherwise you wouldn't appear in my dreams over and over. All these years, the only person in my dreams is you, it has never changed. Qing Jinlan gritted her teeth. Needless to say, the dreams he was having were definitely not any good dreams. That only shows you are a pervert. Xiao Qingzhe didn't deny her assessment of him. He gently asked her in return, what about you? Have you ever dreamed of me, even once? Qing Jinlan scoffed lightly. Not even half a time, what nice dreams could you be having? She folded her arms, unwilling to lose this bout. Don't talk about liking or not liking anymore. I know what it feels like to like someone. Back then, the way you looked at me always carried a sense of detachment and appraisal. Don't think I can't feel it. The liking back then was already masked and disguised, let alone now after 7 years. Xiao Qingzhe finally grasped the crux of the problem. I behaved detached because I thought you liked Shiran, and you were willing to be with me only to pass the time, so I was always hesitating between moving forward and pulling back. He paused for a moment, his dark eyes fixed tightly on her, for the first time laying bare the questions that had been pressing on his heart. Do you like Shiran? Just passing the time? What exactly did he take her for? Qing Jinlan's face lit up with a bright smile. Not only do I like him, as you already know full well, I love him so much I can't stand it. Even knowing his heart is elsewhere, I still love him to death. Xiao Qingzhe's taut jaw suddenly relaxed, and a light shone in his composed eyes. He knew the answer now, and was certain, it's me you like. Somewhere in the distance a dog started barking wildly, each bark louder than the last, yapping irritatingly. Qing Jinlan felt a fire smoldering in her throat, burning all the way up to her heart, for his late-coming certainty. The fire burnt her until she began speaking recklessly, I like dogs. Qing Liqui was woken up by the barking, blinking open her eyes in a daze. Seeing her mom and dad outside the car, she called Mama, then Papa, reaching out her arms for a hug. Xiao Qingzhe passed the electric mosquito swatter and his jacket to Qing Jinlan, then went around to the back seat to pick up Qing Liqui. Qing Jinlan reflexively took the things he handed her, but the moment she had them, angry at herself for the reflex, she threw his jacket onto the roof of the car. Then she made an effort to put on a gentle smile for Qing Liqui. Baby, did the noise wake you up? In her papa's arms, Qing Liqui rubbed her eyes and leaned over, circling her mama's neck with both hands, snuggling up to seek comfort from mama in her sleepy state. The doggy woof woofs woke me up, mama. I like doggies too, but I like grandma's little milk doggy. The little milk doggy is so cute, it won't woof so loud. Does mama also like little milk doggies? Qing Jinlan. Xiao Qingzhe. Qing Jinlan wanted to hug Qing Liqui over, but she was holding something in her hand and it was a bit difficult to hug her over with one hand given their current position. She pressed her forehead against hers. Were you scared by the loud barking? Qing Liqui shook her head. With mom here and dad too, I'm not afraid. Our good baby is really brave. Qing Liqui had just woken up and was still a little groggy. She was easily distracted, because I'm a big baby now. Big babies have to be brave. Qing Jinlan's eyes softened as she leaned down to kiss the brave big baby. Xiao Qingzhe felt like something was stuck in his throat, stiff and unmoving. He only hoped this night could last a little longer. Qing Liqui leaned against her mom's neck, nuzzling her eyes like a little kitten. Then she saw what her mom was holding in her left hand. She had seen it this morning. She straightened up from her mom's shoulder, excitedly pointing at the box and asking, Dad's gift for mom. Mom, what did Dad get you? Is it a princess crown too? Qing Jinlan vaguely murmured mem and showed her what was in her right hand. This is what your dad got for you. What is this? Qing Liqui blinked, then remembered, ah. An electric mosquito swatter. She turned her head to look at Dad. Dad bought 2, one for me and one for Dad. Dad and I will get rid of mosquitoes together and protect Mom. Xiao Qingzhe stroked his daughter's hair, looking at the girl's mother, and said softly, yes, we'll get rid of mosquitoes together and protect Mom. Visit no.v3lb/n.cm for new OVL. This was a typical case of a thief crying thief. The mosquitoes hiding in the grass made 2 whimpering sounds, as if to say they had nothing to do with this. It was clearly something he did himself, yet he was blaming it on them. Qing Jinlan put the things in her hands into the car, reached out to hold Qing Liqui. There are no mosquitoes tonight. You can protect Mom when there are mosquitoes. It's time to say goodbye to Dad now. You've sweated quite a bit today and need to go home and take a bath soon, otherwise you'll get sleepy again later. Qing Liqui leaned against her mom's neck, nuzzling her eyes like a little kitten, then looked at what her mom was holding in her left hand. She had seen it this morning. She straightened up from her mom's shoulder, excitedly pointing at the box and asking, "Dad's gift for Mom." "Mom, what did Dad get you? Is it a princess crown too?" Qing Jinlong vaguely murmured mem and showed her what was in her right hand. "This is what your dad got for you." "What is this?" Qing Liqui blinked, then remembered. "Ah. An electric mosquito swatter." She turned her head to look at Dad. "Dad bought two, one for me and one for Dad. Dad and I will get rid of mosquitoes together and protect Mom." Xiao Qingzi stroked his daughter's hair, looking at the girl's mother, and said softly, "Yes, we'll get rid of mosquitoes together and protect Mom." This was a typical case of a thief crying thief. The mosquitoes hiding in the grass made two whimpering sounds, as if to say they had nothing to do with this. It was clearly something he did himself, yet he was blaming it on them. Qing Jinlong put the things in her hands into the car, reached out to hold Qing Liqui. "There are no mosquitoes tonight. You can protect Mom when there are mosquitoes. It's time to say goodbye to Dad now. You've sweated quite a bit today and need to go home and take a bath soon, otherwise you'll get sleepy again later." Qing Liqui leaned against her mom's neck, nuzzling her eyes like a little kitten. Then she saw what her mom was holding in her left hand. She had seen it this morning. She straightened up from her mom's shoulder, excitedly pointing at the box and asking, "Dad's gift for Mom." "Mom, what did Dad get you? Is it a princess crown too?" Qing Jinlong vaguely murmured mem and showed her what was in her right hand. "This is what your dad got for you." "What is this?" Qing Liqui blinked, then remembered. "Ah. An electric mosquito swatter." She turned her head to look at Dad. "Dad bought two, one for me and one for Dad. Dad and I will get rid of mosquitoes together and protect Mom." Xiao Qingzi stroked his daughter's hair, looking at the girl's mother, and said softly, "Yes, we'll get rid of mosquitoes together and protect Mom." This was a typical case of a thief crying thief. The mosquitoes hiding in the grass made two whimpering sounds, as if to say they had nothing to do with this. It was clearly something he did himself, yet he was blaming it on them. Qing Jinlong put the things in her hands into the car, reached out to hold Qing Liqui. "There are no mosquitoes tonight. You can protect Mom when there are mosquitoes. It's time to say goodbye to Dad now. You've sweated quite a bit today and need to go home and take a bath soon, otherwise you'll get sleepy again later." Qing Liqui had just taken a nap and was fully energized. She wasn't sleepy at all now. "Mom, I just had a good sleep and I'm not sleepy now. Has Dad seen the video of me playing the piano yet?" Xiao Qingzi replied to his daughter. "Dad hasn't seen it yet." Qing Liqui clapped her hands together. "Then let's watch it together, Mom and Dad." "Mom, can we put the video on the TV to watch? It'll be clearer that way." Qing Jinlong looked at her watch. Her parents should be back soon. They couldn't linger at the door any longer. "Then after watching the video we have to take a bath and sleep, okay?" Qing Liqui nodded vigorously. "After watching the video with Mom and Dad, I'll take a bath and sleep, and then have a beautiful dream." Xiao Qingzi couldn't help pinching her pert little nose. Qing Jinlong said to Xiao Qingzi, "Tell your driver to move the car somewhere else first." He had been drinking, so he must have had a driver drop him off. The driver was probably waiting nearby. Xiao Qingzi looked straight into her eyes. The innocence in his eyes was exactly like Qing Liqui's. "The driver had a bit of an emergency at home, so I sent him back first. I'll call a hired driver to come pick me up later." Qing Jinlong wanted to glare at him but held back because of Qing Liqui's presence. "Little Liqui, take Dad inside through the small door first. Mom will go park the car." "Okay." Qing Liqui directed her dad to walk forward. "Dad, when I put my face near the door, it opens automatically. It's really magical, right? Big Uncle said it's called artificial intelligence. It really is magical." Xiao Qingzi responded to his daughter while handing the car keys to the person beside him. Qing Jinlong unceremoniously snatched the car keys. If she could, she really wanted to throw the keys at his face. She first parked his car in the yard, then parked her own car in the yard. Qing Liqui had already brought him inside. She first took out Mom's slippers, then took out the slippers Dad wore last time and gave them to Dad, and finally took out her own cute little bunny slippers. Xiao Qingzi wanted to help her change her shoes, but Qing Liqui waved her hand. "Dad, I can change them myself now. I've grown up and can do a lot of things." Xiao Qingzi praised her the same way Qing Jinlan did. Our good baby really is amazing. Qing Liqui smiled brightly as she sat down on her own little stool beside them and nimbly changed into her slippers. Xiao Qingzi watched her beside him. Only after she finished changing did he start changing his own shoes. After changing their shoes, Qing Liqui pulled Dad by the hand into the bathroom. She stood in front of her own little sink and said, "Mom said the first thing to do when coming home is wash your hands, to wash your little hands clean." Xiao Qingzi was always earnest and willing to learn when it came to his daughter. Dad remembers. Qing Liqui looked at Dad's hands, then looked at her own hands. Dad's hands are so big, much bigger than mine. They seem even bigger than Big Uncle's. Xiao Qingzi held out his right hand and compared palms with her small hand. Qing Liqui exclaimed in surprise, "Dad, why are your hands so big?" Xiao Qingzi replied, "Probably because Dad has to protect you and Mom." Qing Liqui suddenly understood and looked at Dad with great admiration. "I know. Dad must be able to protect me and Mom. Dad's hands are so big, he must be better at killing mosquitoes than an electric swatter. Right, Dad?" Xiao Qingzi couldn't say she was wrong. He nodded, "Yes, Dad is better than an electric swatter at killing mosquitoes." Qing Liqui got excited. She wished there were mosquitoes now so Dad could get rid of them all impressively. Qing Jinlan had been standing in the hallway for a while. She called to them in the bathroom, "Little Liqui, come out after you finish washing your hands. Mom has put the video on the TV." When Qing Liqui heard the video was already on the TV, she didn't even dry her hands. She dragged Dad by the finger out of the bathroom. "Mom, we're coming." "Dad, hurry." Mom already put the video on the TV. Qing Liqui pulled Dad to the sofa. Qing Jinlan pressed play and put the remote control down, about to leave. Qing Liqui called for her mom and patted the spot to her left on the sofa. "Mom, sit here." Qing Jinlan stood there. The big and small one sitting on the sofa looked at her with identical eyes. She was stunned for a moment before quickly shaking herself out of it. "You and Dad watch first. Mom hasn't washed her hands yet. I'll go do that first." "Okay, we'll watch again after Mom comes back." Qing Jinlan quickly turned and stepped into the bathroom. Xiao Qingzi watched her back. His deep eyes flickered. He understood some things too late and had also missed too much. He didn't even know where to start making up for it now. Qing Liqui leaned against Dad, kicking her feet and tapping the sofa along with the rhythm from the video playing on the TV. Xiao Qingzi had his arm around her, eyes fixed on the TV, as if trying to reclaim all the lost time through the screen. When the video finished playing, Qing Liqui tilted her head up to look at Dad brightly. Xiao Qingzi squeezed her little hand and praised her tirelessly. "Little Liqui is so amazing. She played so well, even better than Dad." Qing Liqui's eyes shone even brighter. She climbed up Dad's arm. "Dad, I haven't heard you play the piano before." Xiao Qingzi stroked the hair that had fallen by her little ear back behind it. "How about next time? It's too late today. You still have to take a bath, or you'll become a lazy little pig who gets her butt tanned by the sun tomorrow morning." Qing Liqui giggled twice. She had lazed in bed many times not wanting to get up and slept until the sun tanned her butt. "Then next time Dad will play for me and Mom to hear." Xiao Qingzi thought of what he saw at the kindergarten gate this morning. He held out his left pinky. "Dad, pinky swears with you." Qing Liqui loved making hooked pinky promises. She also held out her hand, but Dad didn't seem to know how to do a hooked pinky promise. "Dad, you also have to hold out your thumb. After we hook pinkies, we have to stamp it to make the promise binding." Xiao Qingzi followed his daughter's instructions and held out his left thumb to hook pinkies and stamp the promise with her. Qing Liqui saw the ring of teeth marks on Dad's thumb. There was no need to ask. If she asked Dad, his answer would definitely be that he accidentally bit himself. But who would accidentally bite their own finger? This must be another of Dad's bitter tricks. Dad had finally gotten smarter this time and knew the key to bitter tricks was the finger. Qing Jinlan came out of the bathroom and asked Qing Liqui, "Did you finish watching the video?" Mom, finished watching it." "Do you want to go take a bath then? If you don't go soon, you'll start to stink from all the sweat." "I do." Qing Liqui hurried to get up. She didn't want to become stinky, but she also didn't forget about Dad's finger. "Mom, Dad's finger is hurt. It really hurts." She held up Dad's thumb to show Mom the tooth marks. Mom, do you want to blow on it for Dad? If you blow on it, Dad won't hurt anymore. Qing Jinlan looked at the teeth marks on the thumb and thought of last night's chaos. She felt she should have bitten down harder. Why didn't she bite it off? She met her daughter's expectant gaze with a gentle expression. Go find some pajamas you want to wear tonight. Mom will put some medicine on Dad's finger. Medicine works better than blowing on it. Putting medicine on works too. When Grandpa hurt his finger, Grandma would also put medicine on for him. Okay, I'll go find pajamas. Mom puts medicine on Dad's finger. Qing Liqi felt she had accomplished something big. She left the living room for Mom and Dad to apply medicine and hurried off to the walk-in closet to find pajamas. She figured she should take more time today choosing what pajamas to wear since she had so many pairs and was torn between wearing this pair or that pair. Qing Jinlan took out a tube of medicine from the medicine box and threw it to him to apply himself, then picked up her phone from the sofa and called her mom to confirm they were home. After hanging up, she was about to chase him out. Xiaoqing's lips parted lightly and a single syllable came out. A flat voice sounded, with no discernible emotion in the low, dry tone. Qing Jinlan did not hear clearly what had come out of his mouth at first, and it took her a few seconds to react. She looked at him doubtfully. Xiaoqing's ears turned a little red, and he lightly coughed, fist pressed against his lips. You don't like dogs. Qing Jinlan was unable to sleep in the first half of the night, and had one dream after another in the second half. In each dream, a big black dog kept barking at her. When she woke up the next day, the dark circles under her eyes were so heavy that even thick makeup could not cover them. Qing Liqi's eyes were half closed as she looked up at her mother's face and asked, Mom, did you not sleep well? Qing Jinlan rubbed some fragrant cream on her face, then gently patted her daughter's chubby cheeks twice before answering her question, a little. Qing Liqi opened her eyes wide. Did you have a nightmare? Yes. What did you dream about, Mom? Was a big tiger chasing you? No, it was a big black dog. Qing Liqi stroked her mother's head to comfort her. Don't be afraid, Mom. Dogs aren't that scary. White puppies are very cute, and some big dogs can be cute too. Not all big dogs are frightening. The big dog in Mom's dream must have been adorable. Qing Jinlan picked up a comb and started brushing her hair. How does little Liqi know the dog in Mom's dream was cute? Did you sneak into Mom's dream? Qing Liqi tilted her head and thought for a moment before replying to her mom, because Mom is the best mom in the world, the prettiest mom, the cutest mom. So that big dog must have chased Mom because he liked Mom. A dog who likes Mom must be very cute, just like me. Qing Jinlan had originally woken up in a terrible mood after a poor night's sleep. But now she cupped her daughter's chubby face in her hands and kissed her hard several times in a row. What was she to do with this little sweetie who was her daughter? Was she planning to melt her mom's heart first thing in the morning? No one is as cute as our little sweetheart. Our little sweetie is the cutest baby. The corners of Qing Liqi's mouth turned up. Then please give your cutest little sweetheart, me, the cutest little braids. Qing Jinlan did more than just the cutest little braids. She styled Qing Liqi's hair into a flower bun. Qing Liqi spun around in front of the mirror several times and then happily went out the door holding her mom's hand. As soon as she opened the door, she saw a huge bouquet of roses placed next to it. Wow, Mom, who left these beautiful flowers at our door? They're so pretty. The bouquet was too big for Qing Liqi to hold, so she could only squat down and lean in to smell the roses, then look up at her mom. They smell so nice, Mom. Was it brought by a fairy? Qing Jinlan had seen the flowers in the back seat when she parked her car last night. During their relationship, he had given her all kinds of gifts, the newest jewelry, bags, clothes. It was convenient and perfunctory. Sometimes she was too lazy to even open them and look. But he had never given her flowers before. It wasn't that she particularly liked flowers, she just couldn't imagine what it would be like if he appeared with a bouquet. It really wasn't his style, just as she had never imagined that the word woof would come out of his mouth. Did he think that by barking woof he would get the dogs to recognize him as one of their own? Qing Jinlan plucked a rose, snapped off the stem, and tucked it behind Qing Liqi's ear. She held her daughter's chin and examined her carefully. I feel like I'm looking at a beautiful little fairy. Qing Liqi touched the rose on her ear. She jumped up happily. I've become a little flower fairy. Qing Jinlon bent down to pick her up. Our little Liqui has become a little flower fairy. Does she still want breakfast? Qing Liqui put her arms around her mother's neck. I do. Little flower fairies need to eat a lot to grow into even prettier fairies. She rubbed her little nose. I can already smell the breakfast Grandma Chu is making. Qing Jinlon carried her little flower fairy through the small door in the wall. The wind blew over the roses blooming on top of the wall, and their fragrance filled the June air. Summer had arrived before they knew it. Visit NoV3LB/N.cm for new OVL. It was Saturday today. Qing Jinlon hadn't gone to the hotel yesterday, so she needed to go over this morning to deal with some backlogged work. The hotel was also hosting 2 important conferences this weekend that she wanted to oversee. When she parked her car in the underground garage, she habitually took out her phone to check her messages. The red dots on WeChat had piled up. The liveliest was the conference group led by Chang Yunxiong and Miao. The conference was taking place tomorrow, and they were doing a rehearsal today. Zhouwen spoke for the first time in the group. He at Qing Jinlon, then at Xiao Qingze. After the meeting ends tomorrow, we 3 companies should get together. First, we've mostly just been in contact online recently, so we should have a NetFriends meetup to match names to faces and build a good foundation for our next collaboration. Second, to celebrate the successful and smooth conclusion of our conference. I'll play host and we can eat and drink to our heart's content, not leaving until we're drunk. What do you think? Below, the other people in the group responded enthusiastically, agreeing that Boss Zhou had a great idea. The 2 people he had not yet responded. Qing Jinlon typed in the chat box, Boss Zhou is right, we should get together. But Boss Zhou shouldn't have to play host. Boss Zhou has taken care of Mei Shui and Lanjin's business, he shouldn't have to spend more on treating us to a meal. I want to take this opportunity to sincerely thank Boss Zhou's team and Qianmiao's team for their care and coordination with Mei Shui's work, as well as everyone's hard work recently. Right after Qing Jinlon hit send, another message appeared in the chat at the same time. Hers was on top, the other below. The sender of the other message was Xiao Qingze. The content was, Boss Zhou is right, we should get together. But Boss Zhou shouldn't have to play host. Qianmiao is leading this conference, and Boss Zhou and his team have given Qianmiao a lot of support and help. Boss Zhou shouldn't have to spend more on treating us to a meal. I want to take this opportunity to sincerely thank Boss Zhou's team and Boss Cheng's team for fully cooperating with Qianmiao's work and everyone's hard work recently. The others in the group looked at the messages above and below. For a moment they thought there was something wrong with their eyes. How could these 2 messages be so similar? Were they really written by 2 different people? Zhouwen replied first, you 2 are so in sync? But he recalled it in less than a second, immediately following up with, no matter who's treating, dinner is set. I'll definitely be there tomorrow, you 2 who offered to host better not find an excuse to duck out on me. Boss Zhou recalled his message quickly, but some had faster eyes. Wu Tongtong was one of those with fast eyes. She looked at Boss Xiao's message, then Boss Qing from Mei Shui's message. She covered her mouth with both hands. She felt like she had found the person who could give her boss lifelong happiness, the one Boss Alex had mentioned. Could it be Boss Qing from Mei Shui? However, Boss Xiao, who never changed his profile pic, when did he change it? Next to the domineering German Shepherd was a cute little white dog nestled up to it. That domineering German Shepherd did look a lot like her boss, but this little white dog was far too cute, completely inconsistent with her boss's image. Since when did her boss like such adorable creatures? Wu Tongtong didn't know whether to be more surprised that her boss liked such cute animals, that her boss actually knew how to change his profile picture, or the subtle relationship between her boss and Boss Qing from Mei Shui? Qing Jinlon looked at the message, wanted to recall it, but felt that recalling it would seem more evasive. She simply threw her phone in her bag and stopped thinking about being in sync or what his profile picture was, or if he was trying to compete with dogs or something. Xiao Qingze stared at the 2 messages for a while. The corners of his mouth turned up slightly. Then he took a screenshot. Qing Jinchuan, who walked over from across the street, pushed his sunglasses further down his nose. He was seeing ghosts in broad daylight. This guy actually knew how to smile. Qing Jinchuan had come to attend an industry conference held in the city. He knew Xiao's company was also attending, he just didn't expect to run smack into them at the entrance. What a small world. Xiao Qingze also saw Qing Jinchuan. Qing Jinchuan pushed his sunglasses back over his eyes. Anyway, the entrance was only so big. He would not give way. He could give way to anyone, but in front of the Xiao family, the Qing family did not have the word give way in their vocabulary. Not even a millimeter would they give way, and Xiao thought he could discuss the land in Nanqing with him? What a joke! Xiao Qingzi signaled for the people behind him to take a step back, then said to Qing Jinchuan, "Boss Qing, please go ahead." He was showing a great deal of humility. Qing Jinchuan's subordinates recognized Xiao Qingzi and were shocked. Since when were the Xiao family's people so polite? Not to mention old man Xiao, even Xiao Zhongting and his son looked down on people like they were garbage. Moreover, this was the Qing family they were facing. Not much was known about this new head of the Xiao family who hadn't grown up in the Xiao household, but in the end he had the Xiao blood in him. How could he be any different? Qing Jinchuan was also stunned by Xiao Qingzi's show of deference. He shook out his sleeves and gave a cold humph before going through the door first. The more he thought about it afterwards, the more he felt something was off. For Xiao Qingzi to show such humility, he must be seeking something. And what he sought was naturally his Qing family's treasure. Why did he go along with Xiao's after you just now and let him gain the upper hand in a tactical retreat? As soon as Qing Jinchuan returned home, he picked up his little niece who came running at him and gave her a big hug. "Little Liqui, your big uncle lost a step in the game today." Qing Liqui took the sunglasses off her granduncle's nose bridge and put them on her own head. "It's okay, granduncle. If we've taken a wrong turn, we can just go back and start again. Even if we've lost this round of the game, we can just start a new round." How did Grandpa put it again? She cleared her throat and lowered her voice to mimic her grandpa's. "Defeat is temporary, and so is victory. You must overcome arrogance and impatience to find the eternal path." Qing Jinchuan's bad mood all afternoon was dispelled by his dear little niece. She was right. No matter how humbly Xiao Qingzi acted, it wouldn't get past her stern grandfather Qing Shanhe. The treasures of the Qing family were not so easily obtained by just anyone. Granduncle, who Grandpa's family has moved someone into their home, Qing Liqui shared the latest news. The Hu couple had moved abroad with their son last year but kept their house. Qing Jinchuan asked, "How do you know?" "I saw people moving things into their home when I came back from my ballet class," Qing Liqui replied. "That's good news. You'll have new neighbors and potentially a new little friend to play with if they have kids too." Qing Liqui smiled happily. "I haven't seen them yet, but I feel like they do have a kid, a super cute little girl." "Wow, you're a little psychic, aren't you, a tiny fortune teller? Come tell granduncle how you know." Qing Liqui shifted the sunglasses down to her eyes and put on a mystifying expression. "Because a lot of the stuff they moved in are things us girls like. With such an obvious clue even I could guess it without being psychic." Qing Jinchuan was amazed by his precious little niece. He would have to protect this adorable psychic gem well and not let her be tricked away by ill-intentioned people. When Qing Jinlan returned home, she also noticed the movement next door. During the New Year when Uncle Hu and the others called to give New Year greetings, they also mentioned that they wouldn't sell the house here. In the future if they wanted to come back, this house was still the most comfortable to live in. Now someone has moved in. She didn't know if it was relatives and friends coming to stay temporarily, or if there were new neighbors. The evening sky was burned red by the afterglow. The evening breeze blew the clouds away. Before long, the clouds gathered together again, dreamy as if entering a fairy tale world. Qing Liqui took out the Elsa kite her uncle had given her and asked her mother to help fly Elsa Princess into the sky. The wind wasn't too strong, but the yard was big enough. The kite slowly flew up in Qing Jinlan's hand. Qing Liqui took the kite handle from her mother's hand, running backwards on her little legs against the wind. Qing Jinlan was afraid she would fall down, so she jogged along behind her to protect her. Qing Liqui looked at the kite and then at her mother. Her voice was excited. "Mom, Elsa Princess flew into the sky." "Yes, Elsa Princess is going to make friends with the clouds." "Baby, watch the road ahead, running backwards like this you're likely to fall down." Just as she was speaking, Qing Liqui's little legs softened and she was about to fall left. Qing Jinlan quickly reached out to support her back with one hand and scooped her waist with the other, catching her in her arms. She didn't fall to the ground, but Qing Liqui's hand slipped and the kite handle fell from her hand. The kite slid down with the wind, slanted and tilted from the sky. Elsa Princess ran to the other side of the wall. The handle hung on top of the wall, about to fall down but not quite. "You're not hurt anywhere, are you?" Qing Jinlan looked her up and down. Qing Liqui shook her head and also looked at her mother. "Did you get hurt, Mom?" Mom didn't get hurt either. Qing Jinlan held her and stood up, looking at the kite line. Next to Uncle Hu's house against the wall was a crepe myrtle tree. It should have gotten caught in the crepe myrtle tree. Mom, can Elsa Princess come back? Qing Liqui was somewhat mournful. Qing Jinlan squatted down to look at her, wait for Mom to go inside and get some strawberries your grandmother just picked. The kite falling into someone else's house is considered an intrusion. We have to bring a gift to apologize before we can get your Elsa Princess back. Qing Liqui nodded. Mom, bring more. Bring the portion I want to eat too. It was me who carelessly let the kite go. Mother and daughter had just walked to the gate with a basket of strawberries when the doorbell rang. Qing Jinlan opened the door. Outside stood a woman in her 50s with white hair and a simple smile. She held the kite in one hand and carried several boxes of pastries in the other. She introduced herself first. Hello, I'm the auntie hired next door to clean and tidy up. Is this your kite, little girl? Full 0W current novels on n/o/v/3l/b in.co/m. Qing Liqui took it with both hands, with a sweet smile on her face. Yes, thank you, Granny. You're welcome. The middle-aged woman's smile deepened. She picked up the pastries in her hand and handed them to Qing Jinlan. My employer said that the renovations and cleaning these days would be noisy and disturb your rest, so these are a small apology gift. You must accept them. It's okay, moving and cleaning up are unavoidable. It won't disturb us. Qing Jinlan also handed over the strawberries as an apology gift for the kite. The neighborly relationship was thus established. Qing Liqui looked at the things in her mother's hand, puzzled. Mom, the things Granny gave, there's stuff I like to eat, stuff you like to eat, stuff Grandma likes to eat, and stuff Aunt Jo likes to eat. How did the neighbor Granny know what we all like to eat? Qing Jinlan had a vague guess in her mind, but felt it was impossible. He had always been rational and prudent in his actions, thinking things through carefully before deciding. He wouldn't do something so crazy. Not to mention what would happen if the Shao Group's board of directors knew he was living in the small district developed by the Qing family. Even if her father knew, he definitely wouldn't let him off easy. On Sunday, the Canadian Qingmiao Group summit went relatively smoothly. There were sudden situations, but they were also dealt with safely. Overall, it was considered successful. The banquet was set at a restaurant near Lanzhou. Qing Jinlan planned to make an appearance and then leave. Excuses were already prepared. After arriving, Zhouan said Xiao Qingze had something come up and couldn't make it. Since he broke the appointment, then today's meal would definitely go on his tab. Qing Jinlan unconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. As long as he wasn't here, she didn't care about eating this meal. After the high-intensity project ended smoothly, everyone was in high spirits. There were mostly young people in the 3 project groups, and after 3 rounds of drinking, the boundary line between boss and employee faded somewhat. Zhouan and Qing Jinlan were both coerced into drinking a few rounds. While eating, Wu Tongtong observed the person at the head of the table. The second and third generations of prestigious families generally wouldn't look too bad. Even if they didn't have good innate conditions, they could still use money to build it up afterwards. But even with rebuilding, some things like bone structure were still hard to change. Some people looked beautiful at first glance, but that beauty would always make people feel like something was missing or extra. This second young lady of the Qing family was different. Her beauty radiated from the inside out, her temperament flowing between gestures and steps. Her face was only the size of a palm, her makeup light, her skin fair and lustrous. Her eyes were cold, but when she smiled, she naturally exuded a kind of bright charm, charming but not vulgar. Her long hair was lightly pinned up, making her neck appear even more slender. She wore a sleeveless black dress of unknown brand. The simple yet well-fitted cut outlined her figure. Her only accessories were a pair of pearl earrings dangling from her earlobes, low-key and elegant. When listening to someone speak, her eyes would look at the other person attentively and earnestly, completely unlike the rumored arrogance. Wu Tongtong regretted that President Xiao didn't come. If President Xiao had come, with her piercing eyes, she would definitely be able to discover some clues between the two if there really was something going on. Halfway through the drinking, Qing Jinlan made an excuse to go to the restroom and came out to the rooftop terrace outside the restaurant. She called Qing Liqui, saying she would be home late tonight. Qing Liqui obediently told her to be careful, to remember to eat, and if she drank alcohol to have the driver uncle come pick her up. After ending the call with her daughter, Qing Jinlan leaned her arms on the railing, gazing into the distance at the city lights for a while before coming back to her senses. She turned wanting to go back inside and found the person standing behind her. She didn't know how long he had been standing there. She had been so lost in thought that she hadn't noticed. In the vast night, their eyes met. This scene was extremely similar to their reunion at the Bai family wine event after he first returned to the country. The difference was that at that time, she pretended to be calm on the surface but was full of indignation and resentment towards him inside. Though it would be more accurate to say that rather than resenting him, she resented the past her, resented how easily she had given her feelings in a relationship, only to receive deception and exploitation in return. Now, it seemed like nothing was so important anymore. When people live to a certain point, they have to learn a very important skill to reconcile with themselves. Qing Jinlan shifted her entangled gaze and turned to look at the lights of thousands of households in the distance. Xiao Qingze, she called his name. Her tone was unusually calm for such a long time, with some ethereal vagueness in her voice, as if returning to the past times again. I admit that I did like you before, otherwise why would I still allow you to approach me so blatantly even when I knew who you were? I wasn't bored enough to use someone for amusement. Xiao Qingze was led by her words to take a step forward. His leather shoes touched the tips of her high heels. The distance between them was only an inch apart. Qing Jinlan didn't back away or shift her high heel position, allowing the two shoes to lean against each other. Maybe it was the alcohol, some words came out involuntarily. She gave a self-deprecating laugh. Thinking back now, I really was childish. I was spoiled by my family, always feeling that liking someone was just between two people. As long as I liked him, my parents would always indulge me. But liking someone was never just between two people, let alone now. No matter how much I liked you before, misunderstandings fade over time, time also fades, faded to today where it's all faded away. To me now, you're no different than an ordinary stranger. But between us there's Qing Liqui. Being complete strangers isn't very realistic either. Maintaining an ordinary friendship is probably the best solution for the current situation. The air fell into silence. Xiao Qingze looked at her tranquil side profile and spoke in a low voice, 3 times. Qing Jinlan didn't understand and turned to look at him. What? Xiao Qingze looked into her eyes. Kiss me 3 times. If after 3 times, you don't have any feelings for me and feel that kissing me is no different than kissing a wooden post, then from now on I will no longer harbor any delusions and will wholeheartedly be a good father to Qing Liqui, not taking another step forward. Qing Jinlan was stunned for a moment, then glared at him with her beautiful eyes. What are you thinking? Kissing him 3 times, and in the middle of the night too. What a daydream. The two were very close. Xiao Qingze reached out his long arm and pulled. Qing Jinlan's body stumbled forward a step and fell into his arms. She wanted to push him away but he had already grabbed her waist and leaned down to press his lips against hers. Their lips touched, 2 different temperatures, with a second of silence between them. Qing Jinlan wanted to dodge but his hand pressed the back of her head down. His lips firmly sucked at the flesh inside her lips, from left to right to left, wanting to stop but unable to. His lips gently nibbled hers, his nose rubbing against hers. In a hoarse voice he asked, no feeling? Qing Jinlan suppressed the irritability and heat rising in her heart, replying coldly, none. Just as the words left her mouth, he pressed down again. This time it was no longer a shallow tentative gentleness. His tongue directly pried open her lips with an unstoppable forward momentum. Qing Jinlan's teeth were tightly closed but he was in no hurry to hook her tongue. His lips heavily wrapped around the flesh inside her lips. There was the sound of wind in her ears, raucous laughter from the restaurant, the honking of cars from the street. Amidst all these noises was an intoxicating ambiguity that became more pronounced as the clamor grew louder. Xiao Qingze withdrew from her mouth, his voice changing from low to hoarse. No feeling? Qing Jinlan panted lightly as she turned her head away. None. The moment she spoke, Xiao Qingze hooked her chin, plunging his lips and tongue together to delve deeply inside. Wherever her tongue hid, his followed, eagerly playing this game of cat and mouse with her. Xiao Qingze nibbled on the tip of her tongue, murmuring indistinctly, no dislike of me? Qing Jinlan's mind went blank from lack of oxygen. She still replied with 2 words, no dislike. Xiao Qingze laughed hoarsely, no dislike means liking. Qing Jinlan rested her head on his shoulder, catching her breath and calming her racing heartbeats. She had no energy left to refute him. Xiao Qingze brushed her disheveled hair behind her ear, bringing his lips close as he whispered, you have to admit, the more you hate me now, the more it shows you can't let go of me in your heart. You say you feel nothing for me, but your body clearly feels a lot for me. Qing Jinlan inhaled sharply. I think you're crazy. Xiao Qingze cradled her face, forcing her to look into his eyes. I'm very sober. I know what I want. Jinlan, I'll resolve the issue between our families. Even if it's a deadlock, there are always ways to unravel it. As for us, I don't ask for status, above or underground, it doesn't matter. I just want to devote the rest of my life to you, beckon and call, for you to do as you wish. If you don't need me, I'll lock myself away. After all these wasted years, presented with even a sliver of chance, he would never let it slip by. Qing Jinlan. She felt like she was either drunk or dreaming. What was she hearing? Qing Jinlan looked into his dark eyes and murmured, "How do you want to lock it?" These words slipped out, startling them both. Qing Jinlan was shocked that those words had come from her mouth. It seemed she really was drunk. Xiao Qingze's brow quirked up, and a nearly imperceptible smile flashed in his eyes. He held her face and leaned in again. His hoarse voice held satisfaction and delight. You want to know? Far away, the sky lit up with bursts of gorgeous fireworks, making pedestrians on the street stop and cheer. People in the restaurant also took out their phones and went up to the rooftop, wanting to capture the splendor unique to this night. Qing Jinlan pushed him away forcefully. Xiao Qingze moved back 2 steps along with her force. He didn't stop her as she strode away without looking back. Of all the times she'd walked away from him since their reunion, only this once did he watch her leaving back with upturned lips. In the private room, Qing Jinlan bid Zhou farewell. She wanted to leave early to go home and lull her child to sleep. Since she was leaving, Zhou decided to leave with her. With the boss present, the employees felt somewhat constrained even while relaxing. Xiao Qingze pushed the door open and entered. Seeing him, Zhou's face held suggestive meaning. You see, you've come at this time. We were just about to leave, yet you've only just arrived. The corners of Xiao Qingze's eyes crinkled with laughter. The timing is just right for me to take care of the bill. Zhou looked at him suspiciously, then looked at him again. Xiao rarely had such a happy expression. He felt like he was grinning like a cat who'd stolen cream, surely having done something naughty. Zhou said, well, you can't just take care of the bill. Arriving so late, you ought to drink a punishment drink or 3. Xiao Qingze replied, I really can't today. I've had stomach problems these past few days. If I drink, I expect you'll have to call an ambulance. Next time there's a chance, I'll make up for it. With one look, Zhou knew he was faking it, but didn't expose him. All right, stomach issues are no small matter. If you can't drink, you can't drink. But the bills for the 2nd and 3rd rounds today will all be yours. Xiao Qingze nodded lightly with a faint smile. Of course. All expenses for tonight will be put on my tab. The employees cheered loudly. Since Xiao Qingze had entered, Qing Jinlan had quietly moved behind Zhou and was tall and broad, perfectly blocking her from view. Wu Tongtong looked between the second miss hiding behind Boss Zhou, and the usual cold and aloof expression on her elder sister, now unable to conceal the bloom of spring. She came to a conclusion. The second Miss Fair face held an enchanting blush that certainly wasn't from the alcohol. Her lips were very red, not from lipstick, but a natural vibrant red. The lipstick on her lips had been completely eaten away. As for who had eaten it off, Wu Tongtong wanted to slap her thigh. When had her boss sister ever had such a joyful smile? It could only have been that cat. Seeing that Xiao seemed to have only come to take care of the bill and wouldn't stay long, just saying a few words to encourage everyone to relax and eat and drink well tonight, he left with Boss Zhou and Miss Qing. Everyone was even more delighted. With the bosses gone, tonight would be a thorough revelry. Your F4 stories on /o/v/lbn.cm. In the elevator there were only 3 people, Zhou in the middle, Qing Jinlan on the left near the elevator wall, looking at a message from her driver saying he was stuck in traffic and not here yet. Qing Jinlan didn't say she had already left the dinner. She only said not to worry, she still needed some time here too. Zhou was discussing plans with Xiao Qingze about the Longyun anniversary celebration. Xiao Qingze was listening, occasionally chiming in a few words, while his eyes were looking elsewhere. Zhou was aware. His gaze was full of ridicule. He knew why Xiao was abstaining from drink today. He wanted to play the gentleman escort. Zhou just didn't know if this escort would succeed or fail miserably. Jinlan, has your driver arrived? If not, ride with me. Zhou asked. Qing Jinlan put away her phone. My driver is here. No need to trouble you, brother Zhou. Zhou covertly raised a brow at Xiaoqingze, signaling for him to give up his ideas sooner rather than later. Xiaoqingze paid no mind to Zhou's mocking. His eyes were only on that ear whose blush grew brighter and brighter. She knew he was watching her. The three of them walked out of the restaurant doors. Zhou's driver had already pulled up to the entrance to wait. Zhou didn't waste any more words playing the unwanted light bulb. He only urged Qing Jinlan to be careful on the road and give him a message when she got home. Qing Jinlan nodded in acquiescence. After Zhou's car departed, Xiaoqingze took a step left and grasped the hand dangling beside him. Qing Jinlan didn't expect this move. She was caught firmly off guard. Not wanting to make a scene in front of others, she only struggled covertly, but even that concealed effort was no match for him, let alone an overt contest. In the end her hand remained trapped, and she was slightly short of breath from her own agitation. Sensing her stillness, Xiaoqingze turned their hands, placing his knuckles along hers and stroking down until their fingers were interlaced. The intimacy existing between entwined fingers was sometimes more evocative of yearning than a deep kiss. Xiaoqingze's long fingers clasped tight, cradling her soft fingers in his palm. Qing Jinlan didn't dare meet his eyes now, because one look would automatically recall the question that had slipped from her own lips. She must have lost her mind to be led astray by his words. She stared at his chin, cold-browed and cold-eyed. What are you trying to do? The tone was still fierce, but her voice had lost some of the aloof frostiness and gained some unnoticed intimacy. Xiaoqingze replied, taking you home. You drank alcohol. I have a driver. Where is your driver? Didn't you say he was already here? Qing Jinlan was annoyed at his exposure. He went to the bathroom. He'll be right back. I'll wait with you until he gets back. The streets are unsafe at night. As if he wasn't the greater danger here. Then could Xiao please let go of my hand? Qing Jinlan wanted to reopen the distance between them with the formal address. Xiaoqingze looked at her. I'll let go when your driver arrives. The neon lights on the street flashed and glimmered. Qing Jinlan's expression shifted through several changes before finally acquiescing in silence. Perhaps from the summer heat, or the heat in her heart, their clasped palms grew damp with sweat. Sweat mingling with blood, blood mingling with heartbeats. On a summer night, the streets and alleys were especially lively. There were young couples walking hand in hand, elderly couples arm in arm, and nuclear families leading their children. The children skipped and bounced, peeking at the lady then the gentleman. They thought, the gentleman and lady are both so beautiful. The little girl smiled sweetly at the gentleman and lady. Meeting the little girl's smile, Qing Jinlan's previously expressionless face revealed a gentle smile. The corners of Xiaoqingze's eyes lifted slightly, a smile spreading from his eyes. The little girl was stunned by the gentleman and lady's smiles. She scurried over and lifted the rose in her hand high to Xiaoqingze. Beautiful gentleman, a flower for you. You can give the pretty flower to the beautiful lady, to make her happy. The little girl's parents were helpless with their flower-loving daughter. They followed their daughter over and smiled apologetically at Xiaoqingze. Xiaoqingze crouched down to be at eye level with the little girl. Thank you, pretty little miss. The little girl met the handsome gentleman's eyes, suddenly shy. She stuffed the flower into his hand, grabbed her parents' hands, and scurried away. Xiaoqingze turned the flower in his hand, stood up, and without a word, tucked it into the hair by the person beside him. Qing Jinlan glared at his presumptuousness. She reached to take the flower out. Xiaoqingze pressed her hand down. Leave it. It's beautiful. It really was beautiful. The vibrant flower, the dark hair, the snowy complexion. And a pair of seemingly aloof eyes, shimmering with rippling waves. She was vivid and lively like this, not an ethereal illusion like the flower in the mirror or moon in water. Xiaoqingze wanted to step closer and embrace his beloved in this busy downtown street. A car suddenly stopped in front of them. The driver hurriedly opened the door and got out, then hesitated and quickly tried to get back in the car. Qing Jinlan called out. Xiao Lu. Oh, Miss Second. Xiao Lu understood Miss Second's meaning. He got out, walked around the front of the car, and opened the rear door. My driver is here. Qing Jinlan looked at Xiaoqingze. The unspoken meaning was that he should let go now. Xiao Qingze was as good as his word. He let go smoothly, seemingly without reluctance. His fingertips followed her departing direction, reaching forward slightly. Qing Jinlan's hand held the car door. She paused, remembering the flower on her ear, but ultimately said nothing. She bent down and entered the car. The door closed, the tinted windows blocking everything outside. Qing Jinlan toyed with the flower in her hand, eyes vaguely unfocused, lost in thought. Xiao Lu glanced in the rearview mirror. "Miss Second, there's a car behind us that seems to be following us." Qing Jinlan looked back at the license plate. It was familiar. She told Xiao Lu, "Ignore it." "Yes, Miss Second." Xiao Lu focused on driving. The car followed them all the way to the Qing residence. Qing Jinlan got out and stood in the yard for a while, watching the lights in the neighboring house come on, verifying her guess. She pressed that familiar number in one go. As soon as it connected, Qing Jinlan said, "You're looking to die." Was he afraid her father couldn't find a reason to deal with him, so he had delivered himself to their door? Xiao Qingze laughed low. "Worried about me? Afraid I'll be beaten by your father?" Qing Jinlan choked on his casual tone. She immediately hung up. Whether he courted death was none of her business. Under the hawthorn tree, Xiao Qingze watched the light in the neighboring house, eyes full of softness. He really liked this house. It had bright windows overlooking the pier and dark storage cellars below. It took some time to persuade the Huss to sell it. They were not lacking in houses or money. This place was probably the most comfortable of all their properties, one they would have liked to keep for when they returned to China to live in retirement. The house was well maintained and the older Huss had good taste, so not much needed changing other than replacing all the furniture to move right in. That night when he left her family home, he had already sized up her father, the captain of the Qing Enterprise. His car had barely made it through the gates when he saw someone waiting roadside for him. Xiao Qingze got out of the car and called out, "Uncle Qing," ready to introduce himself, but Qing Shanhe cut him off before he could speak, looking him up and down. "I know who you are." Xiao Qingze stood respectfully to one side and let the old man look him over. If his own father were still alive, he would be of a similar age and bearing. He had had an excellent father, inarticulate perhaps but gentle and loving, who had taught him to play music and write calligraphy, and instilled in him life philosophies to live by. The elder said nothing unkind, merely stated a plain truth, that a Qing daughter would never marry into the Xiao family. For Xiao Qingze this was not a dead end but an open door. Her father had only said a Qing daughter would not cross the Xiao threshold, not that she could not be with him. If she would not marry into the Xiao family, he would marry into the Changs. He would be happy to join her family as a son-in-law. Qing Jinlan had been a little worried at first, though she didn't know what exactly she was worried about. After observing for a few days, she realized he didn't live on this side very often, only coming by occasionally, and even then he would leave early and come home late, driving a different car than his usual one. The person seen most frequently coming and going from his home was the auntie who came to deliver kites. The neighbors just took Qing Jinlan to be a new resident, and even Qing Liqui didn't know he lived next door. These past couple days, Qing Liqui had been sneaking off mysteriously right after getting out of school. She would hide away in her private little room for a whole hour, not letting anyone else come in. She thought she was being covert, but Qing Jinlan knew she was making a birthday present for her. Still, she played along as if she were very curious about her daughter's little secret but couldn't find out a single clue about it, acting quite regretful. Qing Liqui reassured her mother, counting off on her little fingers, "Don't worry, Mom, there's only 4 more days until you find out what my secret is." She stuck out her little belly, quite proud. "I've prepared a surprise for Mom, and a surprise for Grandma too." There were only 4 more days until Qing Jinlan's birthday. Ever since she was old enough to understand anything, Qing Liqui had prepared 2 gifts every year for her mother's birthday, one for her mother, and one for her grandmother. Qing Jinlan smiled. "Grandma and Mom are really looking forward to our little watermelon surprise." Qing Liqui didn't understand. She blinked her thick, curly lashes in confusion and asked, "Mom, I'm little Liqui. Why are you calling me little watermelon?" Qing Jinlan felt her round little belly. "Because your tummy now looks just like a little watermelon. Come on, let Mom see if our little watermelon is ripe yet." Qing Liqui giggled and snuggled into her mother's embrace, not letting her feel any more. Granny Chu's cooking was so delicious that she had drank 2 whole bowls of porridge tonight, and her little tummy was about to burst. After piano practice, Qing Liqui pulled her mother to walk around the yard, wanting to walk off her watermelon belly. Today's weather was exceptionally hot. Even after the sun had set below the mountains and night fell, the sultry air remained when the evening breeze blew by, refusing to disperse. They hadn't walked long before Qing Liqui's forehead was beaded with sweat. Qing Jinlan used her hand as a fan, lightly fanning her daughter. "Sweetheart, let's go back inside, okay? It's too hot out today." Qing Liqui nodded, copying her mother fanning her too. "Okay, Mom, let's go back in. I'm really hot too." When Qing Jinlan moved to pick her up, Qing Liqui didn't want her mother carrying her. Her mother was sweaty too, and holding her would make her sweat more. She could walk by herself. Qing Jinlan squeezed her little hand. "Good girl." Qing Liqui asked, "Mom, since I'm such a good girl, can I have a little ice cream?" Qing Jinlan replied, "You just ate and haven't digested your food yet. And you just sweated too. Eating ice cream right away wouldn't be good for your body. How about Mom makes you some sweet strawberry juice instead?" Qing Liqui's little scheme didn't work on her mother. But she wasn't unhappy either. Ice cream was delicious, but strawberry juice was also tasty. If she couldn't have ice cream, then drinking sweet strawberry juice was fine too. She grabbed her mother's hand and ran, "Let's go, drink strawberry juice." Qing Jinlan didn't hire a nanny at home. Usually it was just a housekeeper coming regularly to clean up. She didn't want to leave caring for her child to others for what she could do herself, and with the help of her mother and Auntie Chu, she could manage it all. After returning home, Qing Jinlan first brought Qing Liqui to bathe, washing away the sweat and stuffy heat. After the bath, mother and daughter sat facing each other at the dining table, each holding a cup of strawberry juice. Qing Liqui drank hers in one gulp, even letting out a satisfied ah at the end, clearly still wanting more, but Qing Jinlan didn't let her have any more no matter how she sighed. Even being so careful, Qing Liqui still developed a fever in the middle of the night. Qing Jinlan first tried physical cooling, but it wasn't very effective. Qing Liqui hugged her neck, mumbling softly, "Mom, I feel awful." Qing Jinlan didn't hesitate anymore. She dressed her and decided to take her to the hospital. They had a family doctor for regular use at home, but it was too late now. The hospital was just a 10-minute drive by car. It was more convenient to just go there directly. When Qing Jinlan drove to the door, she saw the person standing outside. Xiao Qingze had come home late today. After showering, he wasn't sleepy at all and was just resting in the pavilion under the crepe myrtle tree to cool off. The neighboring lights turned on and he heard noisy movement, realizing something was wrong. It was already late into the night, so something must have happened. He was still wondering if he should ring the doorbell or not when the front door opened. Xiao Qingze walked over. Qing Jinlan lowered the car window halfway down. "What are you doing here? I saw your lights were on. Did something happen?" He immediately understood when he caught sight of Qing Liqui in the back seat. "I'll go with you. I'll drive." Qing Liqui was lying in the back seat with her eyes closed, quietly calling for Mom with her mouth. Qing Jinlan got out and he took her spot, while she went to the back seat to hold Qing Liqui in her arms, gently soothing her. Smelling her mother's scent, Qing Liqui felt a little better. She snuggled closer to her mom, eyes brimming with tears, and gradually fell asleep. Qing Jinlan gently wiped away the teardrops, holding her even more steadily, inwardly blaming herself. She should have been even more careful. Xiao Qingze drove very quickly but also very steadily. He kept glancing in the rearview mirror, anxious as could be. Fortunately the roads were unobstructed this late at night, and they soon arrived at the hospital. When getting out of the car, Qing Liqui was transferred from Qing Jinlan's arms into Xiao Qingze's, and he strode fast into the hospital, holding Qing Liqui steady in his embrace. Qing Liqui awoke from her slumber, heaved dryly a couple times, and vomited everything in her stomach all over Xiao Qingze in one go. Opening her eyes to see Dad, the corners of her lips drooped down. Feeling awful physically and emotionally, she reached out her little hands wanting to wipe him clean, sobbing, "Dad, I'm sorry, I got your clothes dirty." Xiao Qingze's heart ached. He could barely speak. "It's okay, sweetie. They're not dirty." Qing Jinlan helped wipe the corners of Qing Liqui's mouth and gently asked her, "Do you still feel like throwing up?" Qing Liqui grasped her mother's hand. "No, Mom, don't worry. I'm not as uncomfortable now." Qing Jinlan pressed her forehead to her daughter's, feeling that her fever had also gone down a little, probably because she threw up. The ER doctor said it was heat stroke, nothing serious. He prescribed some medication and told the parents to keep a close eye on the child's condition tonight. Ever since vomiting once, Qing Liqui's spirits had lifted considerably, no longer listless. She could even tell the doctor, "Thank you, doctor." Qing Jinlan gave Xiao Qingze a look. "Do you want to go to the bathroom to clean up a bit?" He was a complete mess from Qing Liqui's vomit. He had only hastily wiped it off with some paper just now. "It's fine, no need to clean up." Seeing the hair stuck to her sweaty forehead, Xiao Qingze's throat moved several times. He had only experienced one night like this, but over the years, from pregnancy to Qing Liqui growing this big, there must have been countless situations like tonight. If he hadn't moved to this side today, she would have had to handle all these circumstances alone. Previously, he had always thought he could make up for the lost time over the years, but only now did he realize what exactly he had missed out on. This was what he owed her and owed Liqui a debt he could never repay in this lifetime. Qing Liqui tugged on her dad's clothes. "Dad, we have Grandpa's clothes at home. You can change into Grandpa's clothes when we get back." Xiao Qingze grasped her little hand. "Okay, thank you, Liqui. Does my Liqui feel a little better now?" Qing Liqui nodded, looking to her mother. "Mom, I want to go home now. I miss my bed and teddy bear." Qing Jinlan kissed her lovingly. "All right, sweetheart, let's go home." On the return trip, Xiao Qingze carried Qing Liqui. He kept holding her all the way to the car and didn't switch even when they reached the parking garage. Qing Jinlan drove, and when they got back to the Qing residence, she stopped the car after passing by the neighbors. Xiao Qingze also looked at her. In a low voice he said, "She fell asleep." Qing Jinlan had no choice but to drive the car toward home. Xiao Qingze carried Qing Liqui into the house and laid her down on the sofa in the living room, just as she had said. Before Qing Jinlan could even open her mouth, he spoke first in a low voice. "The doctor said to keep a close eye on her condition tonight. I'll take turns with you watching her. Don't say it when it's light out. If she hasn't run another fever, I'll leave on my own. Your F4 stories on /o/v/lbn.cm." Qing Jinlan stared at him for a moment before turning away. After a few minutes, she came out of the cloakroom with clothes in hand and threw them to him. "You know where the bathroom is." This was agreeing to let him stay. Xiao Qingze's eyes softened. "What about Liqui? Should we move her to the bed? I have to change her clothes first and wipe her down." "Let me help you." Xiao Qingze put the clothes down. Qing Jinlan impatiently said, "What help? You reek right now. Even if Liqui's better, you'll make her sick again with your stench." Xiao Qingze also knew he didn't smell too good at the moment. He picked up the clothes again. "Then I'll hurry." Qing Liqui had had a rough night and was sleeping very soundly now. She didn't even stir when her mother changed her clothes, wiped her face and feet. She only occasionally let out a couple whimpers in her sleep, perhaps the lingering distress from feeling awful earlier hadn't completely faded yet. After cleaning up, Xiao Qingze tiptoed into the bedroom. Qing Jinlan had already changed Qing Liqui's clothes. Qing Liqui was hugging her teddy bear, with a fist pressed to her mouth. Her breathing was very even with each inhale and exhale. "I'll watch her. You go shower," Xiao Qingze said in a low voice. Qing Jinlan had also sweated a lot earlier in her hurry. Her clingy clothes made her very uncomfortable. She nodded, agreeing to his arrangement this time. When Qing Jinlan came out of the bathroom, Qing Liqui was nestled in her dad's arms, head tilted back drinking water. Seeing her mother come in, she smiled groggily at Mom. "Mom, in my dream I kept wanting water. Then I woke up. I thought when I woke up Dad would be gone, but Dad is still here." Xiao Qingze put down the water glass and carefully wiped the corner of her mouth. "Daddy will stay with little Liqui tonight." Qing Jinlan touched the water glass, it was warm. "Do you want more to drink? Mommy will go pour some more for you." "No more, I'm not thirsty now." Qing Liqui looked at her mom, then looked at her dad. "Mommy, since Daddy is here tonight, can I sleep with Mommy, Daddy, and Little Bear? My little bed is so big." The more Qing Liqui thought about it, the more she felt her idea was great. She first patted the spot to her left, "Mommy, you sleep here," then patted the spot to her right, "Daddy, you sleep here today," and finally hugged her little bear and said to Qing Jinlan, "Mommy, Daddy sings lullabies so nicely, Daddy can sing us lullabies to help us fall asleep." Qing Jinlong paused, Xiao Qingzai froze. Seeing the wet and wide eyes of their daughter, the two adults did not speak. Qing Liqui was already lying in bed hugging her teddy bear, waiting for her parents to come to bed. Xiao Qingzai looked at Qing Jinlong. He had no say in this matter. Whatever she said, he would do. Qing Jinlong's eyes flashed, but she didn't say anything. The room was too quiet. Qing Liqui covered her mouth with her little hand and coughed a few times. Qing Jinlong stepped forward and leaned over to ask her, "Does your throat feel uncomfortable?" Qing Liqui pursed her lips and smiled, "My throat is not uncomfortable, I was choked by my own saliva." Qing Jinlong's eyes showed some smile. She stroked her forehead, her voice gentle, "Do you still feel unwell?" Qing Liqui shook her head vigorously, "I'm not feeling sick anymore." She took her mother's hand, "Mom, lie down quickly, you took me to see Dr. Uncle, you must be very tired, you need to rest well." Qing Jinlong froze for a moment, and finally got into the bed on Qing Liqui's left side. Qing Liqui helped her mother pat the pillow, watched as her mother lay down beside her. She snuggled into her mother's arms, turned her head to look at her father, and looked at the bed again. There were only 2 pillows on the bed, one was hers, and one was her mother's. There was no pillow for her father. Her father could go to her mother's room to get a pillow. Qing Jinlong saw what her daughter was thinking and said, "It's okay, your dad doesn't need a pillow to sleep." Sleep without a pillow? Would that be comfortable? Little Liqui looked at her father doubtfully. To Xiao Qingzai, Qing Jinlong's words meant that he could get on the bed. He spoke very affirmatively to his daughter, "Dad can sleep without a pillow." As he spoke, he got on the bed and took up the position on Qing Liqui's right side. It was the first time Qing Liqui had her parents sleeping together with her. She didn't notice the difference between the two adults' thoughts. She just felt it was novel. She stroked her mother's hair for a while, and played with her father's fingers for a while. Just now she was still drowsy, but now she was not sleepy at all. Qing Jinlong hugged her and said, "Sleep soon, or you won't be able to get up tomorrow morning." "Oh, okay, let's sleep, we all have to be early birds." Qing Liqui had heard her mother say once that the early bird gets the worm, but she didn't remember it fully, and only remembered waking up early and worms. She leaned in her mother's arms, her teddy bear leaned in her arms, she fiddled with the teddy bear's ears, making the ears stand up, then held her father's hand, "Okay, Daddy can sing a lullaby now." A gale was blowing outside, the sultry heat that had been pent up all day was going to welcome a downpour in the early hours of the night. Qing Jinlong gently patted Qing Liqui on the shoulder, closed her eyes and pretended to sleep. Xiao Qingzai stopped singing. Only the roaring wind outside came through the airtight windows and thick curtains into the house, proving that time was still moving. Qing Liqui was not fully asleep yet. Hearing that her father was not singing the lullaby, she called out to her father vaguely, "I want to listen more." Xiao Qingzai held the small and big hands, tightened them again, and gently told his daughter, "Okay, Daddy will sing another verse." The singing sounded again in the room, drowning out the wind and rain outside. Qing Liqui gradually entered a sweet dream, with a sweet smile on her little mouth. With the low singing, the steady breathing of the daughter, Qing Jinlong didn't know which sound made her feel more at ease, or both did. She and her daughter entered the same dream. After a windy and rainy night, the sky cleared. Sunlight penetrated through the curtains into the room. Qing Jinlong slowly opened her eyes and turned over, colliding into a pair of deep dark eyes. She was still in between waking and sleep, not fully returned from her dream to reality yet. Looking at his sunken eye sockets, she murmured softly, "You didn't sleep all night?" Xiao Qingzai reached out to pick away the long hair covering her eyes, his fingers slid down along the hair, past her ears, and gently stroked her cheeks. He propped himself up halfway, leaned over across the still sleeping Qing Liqui, pressed his forehead against hers, and lightly kissed the corner of her lips. "I'm sorry. And thank you." There was a lot he wanted to say, but in the end, only these 2 sentences came out of his mouth. Qing Jinlong looked at the person up close, her eyes slowly filled with some clarity. She moved her head back, separating the 2 lips with air, but her gaze did not move. Their eyes were fixed on each other. Her eyes kept looking into his. In the coagulated air, there was a subtle indescribable taste. There were slight sounds in the quiet room, and their entangled gazes moved away at the same time, looking at the little person in the middle. Qing Liqui's tightly closed eyelashes fluttered quickly, and her breathing was a little hurried too. After a few seconds, she slowly opened one eye first, then slowly opened the other eye. Her voice was soft and tender after just waking up. "Dad, are you done kissing Mom? Can I go to the bathroom now?" She had just woken up from her sleep and really couldn't hold it in anymore. She didn't want to be a bedwetting baby. Xiao Qingzhe immediately got out of bed, carried his daughter down, and took her to the bathroom, then closed the bathroom door and leaned against the doorframe barefoot, waiting for his daughter to come out. Qing Jinlan turned over and buried her face in the pillow, and didn't move for a long time. In the morning light, the two adults' ears remained red for a long time. Qing Liqui's illness came and went quickly. After sleeping for one night, she was now full of energy. Qing Jinlan had originally planned to let her rest at home for a day today. Qing Liqui drank the white porridge her father cooked bit by bit and said to her mother, "Mom, I'm all better now, I don't feel sick at all anymore, I can go to kindergarten." Qing Jinlan looked at her rosy little face and said, "Then if you feel any discomfort at all in kindergarten, you must tell the teacher immediately, okay?" Qing Liqui nodded, "I will, don't worry Mom." She looked at her mother's red ears, "Mom, you don't have to be shy, I didn't see anything." When she came out of the bathroom, she saw her mother's red ears. Her mother's ears were still red now. Grandma said that when Mom was shy, her ears would turn red. Qing Jinlan almost choked on the porridge she had just sent into her mouth. She pulled out 2 tissues to cover her mouth and barely swallowed the porridge. She wanted to say something but didn't know what to say. Qing Liqui bent her hand into a semicircle, cupped it to her mouth as a little trumpet, and whispered to her mother, "Mom, I know, Dad likes Mom, and Mom also likes Dad, that's why Dad kisses you." She thought she was whispering very softly, but her voice was not actually small. And she was completely unaware that the 2 sentences she said contradicted each other. Xiao Qingzhe came out of the kitchen with the sandwiches he had just made and put them in front of Qing Jinlan. The corners of his mouth smiled as he ruffled his daughter's hair. "Eat up, after you're done eating, Dad and Mom will take you to kindergarten." Qing Liqui shouted loudly, "Yay," and happily concentrated on eating. It was a chaotic morning. Qing Jinlan just wanted to pretend that nothing had happened and forget it all completely. But some things, the more you want to forget, the more unforgettable they become and continue to appear in your dreams every night. On Qing Jinlan's birthday, it was a clear sky without a hint of cloud, the sky was as blue as washed. Considering there were young children, the birthday banquet was held at home. Although it was a home banquet, only relatives and friends were invited, business relationships would not be involved, but there were still a lot of people, cars filled up half the yard. Qing Liqui prepared 2 gifts for her mother. One was a ceramic vase she had made with her father earlier. It could be placed in her mother's office, so whenever her mother saw the vase she would think of her. The other was a thick handmade greeting card she had made, with various scenes of her and her mother together drawn inside the card. One page also had a handwritten letter in Chinese characters and pinyin. The letter was titled, "I love my mom the most." After reading the letter, Qing Jinlan closed the greeting card. Although she tried hard to restrain herself, her eyes were still a little red. She lowered her head and kissed her daughter's face. "Thank you baby for the birthday present, Mom really likes it, Mom loves little Liqui the most too." Qing Liqui hugged her mother's neck and kissed her mother hard. The crowd cheered and envied that this was not just a little cotton-padded jacket, this was a down jacket. The later it got into the night, the more lively the banquet became. The livelier this side was, the colder the lights looked on the other side. Qing Liqui was excited but not for long before she got sleepy when it was time. Fei Zuhui carried her back next door. She would sleep with her little granddaughter tonight, leaving the young people to have fun and relax. Qing Jinlan was chatting with a friend when her phone vibrated. She glanced at the screen and muted it, then put it back on the table and continued chatting with her friend. After a few seconds, she said "excuse me" to her friend, "Sorry, let me take this call," got up with her phone and left the room. Sure Ran and Jiang were talking in a corner of the yard. The distance between them was not close but also not far. Qing Jinlan took a look at Qing Jinchuan standing by the window holding a glass of wine and looking outside, sighed silently, and walked with her phone to another corner and answered the call. "Why are you calling?" Very calm tone. Xiao Qingzhe said, "Happy birthday." Qing Jinlan replied, "Thank you." The phone fell silent. After a while, Xiao Qingzhe tentatively asked, "Can I have the last hour tonight? I want to celebrate your birthday with you." Qing Jinlan held the phone, her foot lightly kicked the wall. She couldn't say yes, and couldn't say no either. Find the new ST ovals on n/velben.com. In the night sky, stars twinkled, and moonlight shone like water. There was only a wall between the two of them. She was on this side of the wall, he was on the other side, the courtyard was brightly lit, and a roar of laughter could be heard from the house, interrupting Qing Jinlan's reverie. No, I can't. She finally spoke up, answering his question. The guests were still there, so she couldn't leave a room full of guests to meet up with him. Xiao Qingze took a step back. Half an hour? Qing Jinlan didn't say anything. Xiao Qingze continued retreating. 15 minutes? Qing Jinlan was helpless. Could this matter be negotiated like this? Or maybe just the last 10 minutes? There was undisguised dejection in the hoarse voice. Qing Jinlan was silent for a moment before giving her final answer. 5 minutes. As soon as she said it, she regretted it. She should have firmly refused him. What difference would 5 minutes make? She didn't lack someone to celebrate her birthday with her. It was just that before she could change her mind, Xiao Qingze had already accepted this agreement. Okay, 5 minutes. I'll wait for you. The last 3 words were spoken very softly, with a hint of lingering attachment in the fading echoes. Qing Jinlan looked up at the sea of flowers coming over the wall. The night breeze blew by, and she could vaguely smell their fragrance. She gave a vague in response, which counted as a yes. The last person Qing Jinlan saw off was Jiang Jiang. When she returned to the room, she glanced at the man leaning against the sofa with his eyes closed to rest. All right, stop pretending. Everyone's gone. Qing Jinchuan opened his eyes. His gaze was somewhat sluggish, but not to the extent of being unable to stand up like he was pretending to be earlier. Qing Jinlan gave a soft scoff. Big brother, I didn't realize you were such a coward. He didn't even dare to see someone off. Qing Jinchuan picked up the glass on the table and downed it in one go before sprawling back weakly on the sofa. He put his arm over his eyes. You don't understand. Qing Jinlan said, yes, I don't understand and I don't want to understand what happened between you two. But over these years, you know very clearly who has been on your mind. Now that she's finally back, if you can't let go, then don't shrink away so spinelessly without doing anything. You know very well how outrageously wrong you were back then. Let's not even talk about anything else, you should at least give her a proper apology. She may forgive you, or she may not. Personally, I hope it's the latter, because what you did is simply unforgivable. But your apology will at least allow her to slowly move on from the past. This is what you owe her. She hadn't intended to say these things originally. Emotional matters were not something outsiders should stick their nose into. But just now in the yard she had seen very clearly Jiang Jiang was talking with Sharan, and her eyes would occasionally drift towards the French windows over there. It was obvious who she was looking at. If the knots from back then weren't untied, it would be very difficult for the 3 of them to move on. Qing Jinchuan didn't speak, just kept drinking with his head lowered. After quite a while, he poured himself another glass and gulped it down before heavily putting the glass back down. Then he got up and strode towards the door. Qing Jinlan realized something was off. She hurried after him. Although he wasn't completely drunk, he was at least tipsy. And with his bad mood, the effects of the alcohol were probably hitting him faster. At the moment he was only semi-coherent, and Qing Jinlan couldn't be sure exactly how sober he still was. Qing Jinchuan had arrived late, so his car was parked outside. When Qing Jinlan chased out, he was half crouching and half sitting next to the car with his head lowered, not knowing what he was thinking about. Fortunately, he still knew better than to drive after drinking. Qing Jinlan called out to him. Qing Jinchuan looked up at her. Take me to see her. I have something I want to say to her. Qing Jinlan almost wanted to slap him. He only remembered now that he had something to say, after the person had already left. She could only coax him like she would coax the drunk little Qing Liqui. I've been drinking too, I can't drive you. Whatever you want to say, wait until you sober up tomorrow and then go talk to her, okay? Let's go back and sleep now. Qing Jinchuan didn't budge. Qing Jinlan was helpless with the drunk man. She took the car keys from his hand and threatened, fine, I won't care about you then. You can just sleep here yourself. The weather now is just right for sleeping outside anyway. Xiao Qingze walked out from next door and saw the scene. He came over and asked, drunk? Qing Jinlan met his gaze before looking away again. Had a few too many drinks. Hearing the voice, Qing Jinchuan looked over blearily, mistaking Xiao Qingze for his driver. He swayed unsteadily to his feet. Little Lu, take me to Yifeng Garden. Xiao Qingze supported his arm and looked to Qing Jinlan. He lives in Yifeng Garden? Or should I drive him back? Jiang lived in Yifeng Garden. Qing Jinlan had known early on that her words would stir up trouble like this. It would have been better to wait until he sobered up before saying anything. No need, sorry to trouble you, but could you help me get him back inside? Qing Jinlan definitely couldn't handle him alone, and she couldn't just leave him out here either. All right, Xiao Qingze put Qing Jinchuan's arm over his shoulder. Let's go, I'll take you to Yifeng Garden. Supported half-dragged by someone, Qing Jinchuan was quite obedient for a drunk person and didn't make any more trouble, just followed Xiao Qingze's footsteps towards the house. Qing Jinlan wanted to help, but Xiao Qingze said, you don't need to touch him, I can handle him. The night breeze sobered Qing Jinchuan up a little. Hearing the voice was off, he turned and peered closely at Xiao Qingze. His footsteps halted abruptly. You're not Little Lu, you're Xiao Qingze. Xiao Qingze also hadn't expected drunk Qing Jinchuan to be like this. He patiently replied, I'm Little Lu, I'm taking you to Yifeng Garden now. Qing Jinchuan didn't believe him. He put his arm around Xiao Qingze's neck and pulled him closer, wanting to see clearly just who this person was. But with that yank and pull, before he could make out who it was, the nausea hit. His head slumped onto Xiao Qingze's shoulder, and the alcohol in his stomach started to come back up. Although Xiao Qingze dodged quickly, his back was still splattered a little. Fortunately, Qing Jinchuan hadn't eaten much for dinner, otherwise Xiao Qingze's back would have been a horrific mess. Xiao Qingze had already exerted strength in his arm, about to fling this drunkard away in the next second, but he forcibly suppressed that urge. His brows were twisted tightly into deep furrows. He couldn't very well say, letting his daughter vomit on him versus her uncle vomiting on him were two completely different concepts. Qing Jinlan couldn't help but take 2 steps back to keep some distance between them. She turned her head sideways, trying to force down the corners of her lips but really unable to. It seemed he had offended something these past couple days. Seeing her barely suppressed smile, Xiao Qingze's brows relaxed as he slowly said, if you want to laugh then laugh, don't hold it in anymore. Qing Jinlan gave a light cough and cleared her throat. I'm very sorry on his behalf. I'll take care of the clothes later. Xiao Qingze cut her off. Although he's your brother, apologizing is still better coming from him directly. Whether he apologized or not didn't matter. He would at least get back at Qing Jinchuan a little. Oblivious in his drunken stupor, Qing Jinchuan was fast asleep leaning on his shoulder. Xiao Qingze's brows knitted again. After a pause of 2 seconds, he bent down and picked the man up in his arms, then headed towards the house. Which room does he sleep in? Qing Jinlan was astonished. Although she didn't know Qing Jinchuan's exact weight, at 1 meter 80 plus tall and working out every day, touting himself as appearing thin-clothed but fleshy unclothed, there was no way he could be considered light. How could Xiao Qingze carry him so effortlessly? She was rather looking forward to what expression Qing Jinchuan would have tomorrow after waking up and finding out he had been princess carried. Dumped onto the bed in the guest room, as soon as his back touched the bed Qing Jinchuan hugged the blanket and fell straight asleep. He had thrown up with such perfect aim, not a single drop had landed on himself. Xiao Qingze even started to suspect he was pretending to be drunk. Your F48 stories on /o/v/lbn.cm. Xiao Qingze came out from the bathroom and softly asked the woman before him, Little Luqui's asleep? My mom took her over early to sleep next door. Considering he had helped bring the man in, Qing Jinlan's tone was still decent, otherwise she would have been the one vomited on. Xiao Qingze checked his watch. The minute hand had already passed 11, leaving only 4 minutes until midnight. He grasped her hand and strode towards the door, initially walking but soon breaking into a run. What are you doing? Qing Jinlan couldn't break free of his grip and could only follow his footsteps, running along. He was in front and she behind, the moon white and wind clear. The wind blew past his shoulders and her long hair and dress. The silhouettes of the 2 running figures were reflected on the road, connected by tightly clasped hands. He looked back at her. Didn't you say you would give me the last 5 minutes? There's less than 4 minutes left now. They had run too quickly and Qing Jinlan was a little out of breath. Xiao Qingze stopped and swept her up in his arms. Caught unprepared, Qing Jinlan instinctively grabbed his shoulders to steady herself. As her hands made contact with the heat of his skin, she was about to pull away, but with the momentum of being carried, her body tilted forward and she wound up clinging onto his neck with both arms. She couldn't help pounding him. "You're crazy." Carrying her, Xiao Qingze ran into the yard and stopped under the crabapple tree in the pavilion. His chest rose and fell slightly as he gazed at the woman in his embrace. He leaned down and lightly pecked the corner of her lips, murmuring softly, "I went crazy long ago." From the moment he realized there was still a possibility for them to be together again, he had already lost his mind. Qing Jinlan's breathing still had not steadied. She panted lightly, mingling with the rise and fall of his chest. The intertwining breaths of the two were woven together. Qing Jinlan turned her face to hide against his neck. "Put me down." Xiao Qingze directly set her down on the wooden chair. Next to them on the stone table was a small cake. He lit the candles on it and held it up to look into her eyes. "Happy birthday, meow meow." The crabapple tree enclosed this pavilion in its own ethereal paradise. Pink blossoms, orange light, ink-black eyes, a cake ugly beyond words. Qing Jinlan lowered her long lashes, concealing the thoughts in her heart as she blew out the flickering flames. "Thank you." She returned his well wishes, then stood up. "The 5 minutes you wanted, I've given them to you too. I should get going." Xiao Qingze held his watch up to her eyes. "Still 1 minute left." Qing Jinlan looked at him. "Can't you smell your clothes?" He should go take a shower instead of quibbling over this 1 minute. And she really did need to leave too. She couldn't stay here any longer. Xiao Qingze lowered his head and smelled it. It was all the smell of alcohol from Qing Jinchuan. He had just simply dealt with it a little in the bathroom door, and it didn't have much effect at all. He took off his black t-shirt with one hand and threw it into the trash can outside the pavilion. "That's better now." Qing Jinlan was stunned by his simple roughness. Xiao Qingze was frank and calm. He picked up a spoon, scooped up a piece of cake, and brought it to her lips. "Try it?" Her eyes swept over his chest and turned to look elsewhere. "I don't eat sweets after 10 o'clock at night." Faint red appeared on her thin white earlobes. Xiao Qingze moved closer imperceptibly. "Just a little bit." It was quiet for a moment before Qing Jinlan opened her mouth and ate the cake off the spoon. "Is it delicious?" Xiao Qingze asked seriously. Qing Jinlan answered seriously, "Not delicious." Xiao Qingze looked at the milky white on her red lips, his eyes turning from black to dark, and he reached out to hold the back of her head and leaned down. "Let me try it." At first it was just a shallow taste, but the fiery breath lingered around the corners of her lips, eating away the cream on her lips little by little. "I think." He wrapped her lip beads and sighed lightly, "It's very sweet." Just as Qing Jinlan was about to scold him as a bastard, his tongue followed her half-open lips and drilled in. He took her hand and circled it around his neck, gradually deepening the kiss from light to heavy, slowly. The deeper the night, the deeper the kiss. Xiao Qingze stretched out his arm around her waist and lifted her onto the stone table so she could relax a little more. The cool marble tabletop collided with the heat rising from her body, sending chills up her spine. Qing Jinlan let out a low moan from between her lips. The long-absent arousal seemed to overwhelm her body. The numbness that existed in distant memories almost drowned her. Xiao Qingze had only intended to stop at a kiss, but he simply couldn't stop. Her taste, her voice, her breathing, everything led him to continue. His hand went up her skirt, stopping just short, yet he still had to ask, "May I?" Mist began to appear in her eyes. The Milky Way in the sky seemed to enter her tearful eyes. Xiao Qingze couldn't help but kiss her again. The itch that felt like ant bites drilled into her heart, so he couldn't make so much small talk. Qing Jinlan fiercely bit his lips and spat back at him, "No, you may not." Xiao Qingze chuckled hoarsely. The next second, his fingers sank into the moist heat. Qing Jinlan's long neck tilted back slightly, arching into a curved arc. She firmly braced her palms on the marble tabletop to barely withstand this wave of impact, preventing herself from collapsing onto the table. "Who am I?" Meow meow. He wanted her to submit under his hand. Qing Jinlan couldn't hold back her moans at all. She bit her mouth tightly, not wanting to make any sound. She didn't care who he was. The harder she bit, the faster and deeper his movements became. Finally, the nerves in her brain were pulled up in an instant, fireworks exploded into a misty white, and long-absent pleasure rose. Xiao Qingzi kissed her lips again. Under the moonlight, among the floral scents, panting intertwined with panting, slowly returning to tranquility. A long time later. Qing Jinlan leaned against his shoulder, her voice lazy and soft. How much should I pay you this time? Boss Xiao, name your price. Her old friend was right. It didn't matter who the man was, the important thing was that his skills were good. Xiao Qingzi's hand, which was about to reach into his pocket for the ring box, paused. He was thinking about how to tell her about their future together. She was thinking about how to dismiss him with money. In her heart, he was someone who could be dismissed with money? Xiao Qingzi lifted her chin, looking at the charming blush at the corner of her eyes, and asked her, how are you feeling? Qing Jinlan felt soft and sore from her bones to her fingertips. Her mind was still lost in the dazzling fireworks just now and hadn't recovered yet. Her reactions were a little sluggish as she murmured, Xiao Qingzi explained, how much I charge depends on Miss Chang's feelings. Qing Jinlan felt it was a trap. She gave an ambiguous answer, SOSO. Xiao Qingzi hooked her leg over his lap with one hand and wrapped his other arm around her waist, lifting her off the marble table. Since this is a paid service, how can it be just SOSO? It must be satisfactory for Ms. Chang, or I won't be able to set a price. With this posture, Qing Jinlan felt the overture was over and the real show was about to begin. She struggled to get down, I want to go back. Xiao Qingzi strode steadily under the crabapple trees without stopping. The wind blew, and crabapple petals drifted down elegantly with the wind. Some fell on the jet-black long hair, some on the pink cheeks, some in the snow-white neck, and some on the cherry-red lips. She was indeed more delicate than the flowers. Xiao Qingzi's unfathomable eyes concealed turbulent undercurrents. Qing Jinlan sensed the danger. She called his name, Xiao Qingzi. The harsh reprimand was meant to deter him, but her voice was soft and the forcefulness only revealed an unconscious charm. Xiao Qingzi answered her in a low voice, I'm here. He leaned in and first ate the petal lying on her neck, the moist sound mixed with subtle ambiguity. He slowly moved up and ate the petal on her cheek, finally accurately capturing the one on her crimson lips. The petal lingered between their lips and tongues, carrying the sweetness of saliva, the taste of cream, desire and passion, hers and his. Qing Jinlan unconsciously tightened her arms, her dangling toes curled and stretched open again. Her heart seemed to be teased by a wisp of floating fire, the flames growing bigger with her hurried breathing, making her heart itch unbearably and her mind dizzy. I don't want it here, she mumbled indistinctly during the gasps. There were stars, moon, insects chirping in the grass, and the hot wind caressing her body. She didn't want it here, too embarrassing. Xiao Qingzi pressed his lips against hers lightly again and again, wanting to reassure her, but unable to restrain his wicked thoughts. Where does Miss Qing want? Back to the pavilion? Going back to the pavilion, Qing Jinlan was annoyed. She tugged hard at the stubble on the back of his neck, why don't you just go up a tree? Xiao Qingzi laughed hoarsely against her lips. If you want, I will certainly satisfy you. Qing Jinlan was furious. She buried her head in his shoulder and bit down hard. Xiao Qingzi pressed his palm against the small of her back through her clothes, gently massaging. Don't rush, we'll be back in the room soon. Qing Jinlan bit even harder. Was she the one in a hurry? What was she hurrying for? As soon as they entered the brightly lit room, the sweat on her skin evaporated in the cool breeze from the air conditioner, and Qing Jinlan couldn't help but shudder. Cold? Xiao Qingzi held her tight, leaving no gap between them. He found the remote control and turned up the temperature in the room. Turn off the lights, she commanded. Xiao Qingzi turned off the main light, leaving only a few wall lamps on. Under the dim light, their shadows overlapped on the wall, more intimate. Qing Jinlan closed her eyes tightly and continued commanding, all off. Xiao Qingzi nibbled lightly on her neck, whispering, Ms. Chang has so many requests. I'll have to raise my price to ensure satisfactory service. The darkness gave Qing Jinlan a sense of security. Her tense body gradually relaxed, lazily leaning her chin on his shoulder. Whatever you say. As soon as she got into bed, he was on top of her, not forgetting to reach for the bedside table. You're really well prepared. In the intervals between breaths, she mocked hoarsely. Xiao Qingzi hummed and didn't deny his ulterior motives. But he justified himself, it's all prepared for Ms. Chang. Of course I have to be fully equipped to ensure satisfactory service. After so many years, who knows whether this night would come. Qing Jinlan only felt like a leaf drifting on the sea, rising and falling with the turbulent waves, from the bed to the misty bathroom, then back to bed. She wrapped herself tightly in the quilt to stop him from approaching again. She was no leaf, but a fish thrown ashore, barely clinging to the last breath. She would surely die if tossed around more. Xiao Qingzhe wiped the sweat from her forehead, looking at her moist eyes, and asked that question again, how does Miss Qing feel? Qing Jinlan conceded in time, breathless, quite satisfied. Xiao Qingzhe repeated her words, raising his tone at the end, quite satisfied? Qing Jinlan stared at him fiercely. Seeing her look, Xiao Qingzhe sincerely said, I'm quite satisfied with your answer. So I'll set my price, then we're even? Qing Jinlan's gaze stalled for a moment, then she closed her eyes, tone nonchalant and lazy, go ahead. Xiao Qingzhe replied, I know Miss Qing is rich and can afford whatever price I set. And my satisfactory service isn't something that can be settled with money. Then what do you want? Xiao Qingzhe said slowly, I want the place by your side as you sleep, from now on, every day. Then he added, or, a kiss from you will do as well. Qing Jinlan didn't hesitate. She hooked his neck and pulled him down, perfunctorily touching his mouth with her lips. Even now? Xiao Qingzhe smiled. I said a kiss, not a peck. What's the difference? They're the same. Huge difference. Qing Jinlan stared at him silently. You don't know? Let me teach you. Xiao Qingzhe's gaze softened. He was happy to impart his knowledge without reservation. He lightly touched her lips. This is a peck. His lips sucked hers in, demonstrating what a kiss was. The fading heat gathered again. Qing Jinlan couldn't take it and slowly retreated, but the bed was so small. As she was about to fall off the bed, she was pulled back into his arms. His lips against hers, he called her name huskily, meow meow. This time, he wanted her to come to him. Qing Jinlan didn't move, just unable to control her quickening breaths. Xiao Qingzhe was patient. If she didn't move, he wouldn't either. But only their lips stayed still. Wave after wave of heat dried up her moisture. Qing Jinlan's mind grew blurry, only feeling extremely thirsty, unconsciously seeking the source of water. A flash of pleasure shone in Xiao Qingzhe's dark eyes. He caught her approaching tongue and didn't let go again. The night was long, yet short. Qing Jinlan opened her heavy eyelids, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, momentarily unaware of where she was until seeing the watch on the bedside table. Only then did she come to her senses, remembering last night. No one was beside her, only the pattering of water in the bathroom. She wanted to get up, but her sore waist couldn't support her body and she flopped back into bed, nearly cursing out loud. Her clothes from last night were torn beyond repair. Fortunately there were new clothes laid out by the bed. She put on the skirt with shaky, sore hands and tiptoed out of the room with her shoes, like a ghost. Xiao Qingzhe opened the bathroom door and went to the window, smiling as he watched her running figure in the yard. The morning sun shone on her flowing hair and fair hands. The ring on her ring finger sparkled brightly. Qing Jinlan sneaked out of the neighboring villa and tiptoed back into her own, praying not to run into anyone. Qing Jinchuan had left. Qing Liqui was having breakfast with her grandma. But things never go as planned. Fei Zuhui was directing the cleanup of last night's mess. Qing Liqui was in a pretty dress, asking grandma if it was suitable for school today. Qing Jinchuan stumbled blearily into the living room, chicken nest hair and still hung over from last night. All eyes turned to Qing Jinlan. She had no choice but to pretend to be calm. Fei Zuhui looked her up and down. Where did you go so early without your phone? Qing Jinlan casually lied unconvincingly, I went for a run. Follow US stories at nvl/by/n.com. Fei Zuhui looked at her doubtfully. Who goes running in a skirt? Qing Jinchuan was still recovering from last night's drinking and couldn't remember something important, though she couldn't recall what. Qing Jinlan didn't care if her mom believed her or not. She kept up the act, fanning herself while hurrying to her room, it's so hot today. I need to shower quick. Turning to Qing Liqui, she said gently, did you sleep well last night, darling? Qing Liqui followed her mom into the bedroom, even helping to close the door. Looking up at her mom, she asked softly, Mommy, did you go on a date with Daddy? You're just coming home now. Qing Jinlan was shocked and immediately denied, "No, sweetie. Mommy really went for a run. Mommy has been eating too much lately and needs to lose weight." Qing Liqui blinked her big eyes, which clearly said, "I know Mommy is lying, but I won't expose her." Qing Jinlan was almost ashamed of herself. She had not thought of a reasonable explanation to give her daughter yet. Just then, Qing Liqui exclaimed in surprise and grabbed her hand. "Mom, is this the birthday present Dad gave you? What a beautiful diamond ring." Qing Jinlan saw the ring on her ring finger. She was so flustered just now that she did not notice when a ring was put on her hand. "Of course not. This was given by your Aunt Jiang." Qing Jinlan wanted to take it off but could not get it off after trying. Qing Liqui asked, "Didn't Dad give Mom a birthday present?" If Dad did not give one, she would scold Dad. How could he forget to give Mom a birthday present? Qing Jinlan squatted down and said to her daughter, "He gave other things, not this ring." Qing Liqui rolled her eyes and giggled behind her hand. Mom still claimed she did not go on a date with Dad. Without a date, how could she have received a gift from Dad? Qing Jinlan sighed helplessly and ruffled her daughter's hair. She whispered to her, "This is a secret. Little Liqui must not tell anyone else, okay?" Qing Liqui smiled sweetly and nodded obediently, promising to keep the secret between Mom and Dad. Anyway, Qing Jinlan managed to handle this shrewd little princess. She heaved a sigh of relief. "Mom," Qing Liqui moved closer to Qing Jinlan and peered at her neck carefully, "You got bitten by mosquitoes again." The breath Qing Jinlan just let out was sucked back in. "Yes, Mom got bitten by mosquitoes again. I'll take a shower and put on some ointment. Can my little Liqui help pick out clothes for me to wear today?" Qing Liqui was successfully distracted. She loved picking out clothes for her mother the most. "Okay, I'll pick a beautiful dress for Mom." She ran to the walk-in closet as she spoke. Qing Jinlan rushed into the bathroom. As the hot water poured down on her, she covered her face with her hands and could not help letting out a groan. She was really bewitched and foolishly fell for his tricks. She looked at the ring on her ring finger again and wailed silently even more. She finally managed to take it off with the help of the slippery hot water after trying hard many times. It was difficult to take it off, but even more difficult to return it. The lights in the neighboring apartment had not been switched on since that day. Even the cleaning auntie had not shown up. Her calls went unanswered and her messages were not replied. The courier packages she sent within the city to Xiao Qingzhe and Xiongmiao were rejected and returned to her directly. Qing Jinlan tapped her fingers on the table increasingly faster. Tangy Cheng gently coughed to remind Madame Cheng that the hotel department manager had finished his report and it was time for her to give feedback. Qing Jinlan returned to the present. She gave a few simple but incisive points. The hotel department manager had thought Madame Cheng was spacing out just now, but it turned out she had not missed anything he said. However, Tangy Cheng knew very well that Madame Cheng was indeed distracted, it was just that she was very adept at multitasking. Madame Cheng had been rather restless these days. Tangy Cheng still had not figured out what was causing her restlessness. All he knew was that whenever he entered her office, he would see Madame Cheng fiddling with a sky blue box. If he guessed correctly, that box should contain a ring. He could not help thinking, was it because Madame Cheng's marriage proposal got rejected that made her so restless? But he also felt this idea was too preposterous. In this world, who could possibly reject Madame Cheng's proposal unless they were out of their mind? Xiao President seemed quite normal though. Qing Jinlan was unaware that her assistant was having all sorts of random thoughts because he was too free. As the meeting ended, she found the avatar of those two dogs in the WeChat group and sent an add friend request. Xiao Qingzhe saw the red dot light up on WeChat and the corners of his lips curved up slightly. He put down his phone and gestured for Kong Yichan to continue. Kong Yichan felt that the boss had been in an unusually good mood these days, to an extent beyond the norm. His good mood was so extreme that when a manager made an exceptionally low-level mistake, the boss did not even furrow his brows. He just clearly pointed out the mistake and reminded him not to repeat it again. That was it. Moreover, his tone was gentle. Everyone felt that the boss must have been possessed by some god or bodhisattva these days. Otherwise, how could the same person not act like his usual self? Kong Yichan had concluded reporting all the work matters. There was still one very important matter left. President Xiao, Madame Qing Jinchuan wishes to have a phone call with you. This morning, as per her routine, she called Qing Corporation's secretary office. She had expected to be rejected as usual. After all, she had been calling them twice a day for nearly a month, and Qing Corporation's secretary office always rejected her with the same excuse. Not a single word was different. Both sides understood the situation clearly but had to keep up this pretense. But today when she called, the other party told her to wait. Finally the call got through to Qing Jinchuan herself, who said she wanted to speak with her boss. Kang Yichan felt that the bosses must have taken the wrong medication recently. How else could the eternally icy bosses start acting out of character, with Qing Jinchuan actually taking the initiative to request a phone call? Xiao Qingzai said, "Tell them I'm not convenient to talk over the phone. If Madame Jinchuan is willing to grace us with her presence, I will host a banquet at Changlong tonight to entertain her." Kang Yichan nodded. Yes, President Xiao. She felt that the boss was up to no good and did not seem to be planning anything decent. Qing Jinlan did not want to keep looking at her phone but could not resist the urge. He was definitely doing this on purpose. There was no way he had not seen her friend request after 6 hours. Even if he was in a lengthy meeting, it should have ended by now. Qing Jinlan walked out of her office, pondering if she should just head over to Xiao Corporation directly to return that heated potato in her bag. Just then, her phone vibrated. The person who had been playing dead finally accepted her request and even called her. Qing Jinlan answered the call. Xiao Qingzai dispensed with any pleasantries and got straight to the point. "You were looking for me?" Qing Jinlan gave a cold laugh. "Who else could it be, a ghost looking for you?" "That's not impossible either, but I'm not afraid even if a ghost came looking for me since I have a clear conscience." Qing Jinlan did not want to waste time chatting with him and asked directly, "Where are you now?" Xiao Qingzai replied, "What does Madame Qing want with me?" "To return something to you." "What thing?" He was deliberately feigning ignorance. "The ring." Qing Jinlan squeezed out the 2 words. Xiao Qingzai pretended to be puzzled. "Why return it?" "The ring was the price I asked for what happened that night." "Didn't we settle it already?" She had kissed him after all. Xiao Qingzai asked, "Are you sure?" "You only pecked me once." "That wasn't a kiss." "Don't you remember what I taught you? A peck and a kiss are different. Since you didn't kiss me, I assumed you picked the first option, that you agreed to give me the position by your pillow, which means the second half of my life belongs to you. This ring serves as a witness to our agreement, so Madame Qing can't go back on her words." Qing Jinlan reiterated, "I picked the second option." Xiao Qingzai was very agreeable. "The second option works too. If I remember correctly, we did it 6 times, or was it 7 times that night?" Where did he get 6 or 7 times from? Qing Jinlan interrupted him, "It was just 4 times." Only after she finished speaking did she realize she had fallen into his trap by recounting what happened that night with him. Xiao Qingzai chuckled softly. "Madame Qing remembers so clearly?" Qing Jinlan kept quiet. "Since Madame Qing said 4 times, then 4 times it is. In that case, you owe me 4 kisses. I'll be away on a business trip tonight, probably for a week before I'm back. So, with compound interest, by the time I return, Madame Qing will owe me a total of 512 kisses." Qing Jinlan could not help but take his bait. "May I ask how this compound interest is calculated?" Xiao Qingzai explained patiently, "It doubles every day. Since I'm the creditor, I get to decide how the interest is calculated. Isn't that right, Madame Qing?" Was he a bandit? Even bandits did not charge such exorbitant compound interest. Seeing that she did not respond, Xiao Qingzai continued suggestion options. "How about this, Madame Qing? If you are still unwilling to give me the second half of your life for now, and feel that kissing me so many times would be a loss for you, we can compromise and find a solution that meets in the middle. I'll be your boyfriend for 3 months, you can consider it a trial period. After 3 months, you can decide if you want to officially date me. During these 3 months, no matter how many times you kiss me or I kiss you, it will help make up for your loss. What do you think, Madame Qing?" Qing Jinlan. Xiao Qingzai's low husky voice was full of temptation. "Madame Qing, will you be my girlfriend?" Qing Jinlan leaned back in her chair, fiddling with the teddy bear hanging in the car. The bear swayed back and forth in the air before settling back in its original position. She didn't speak, and he didn't rush her. In this stalemate where they could only hear each other's breathing, a sense of peaceful tranquility was born. Qing Jinlan blinked and pulled her wandering thoughts back, focusing her gaze on the teddy bear again. F0 low new hapters at NOV/EL/bin/. Calm. I don't know whether to say Mr. Xiao is shameless or cunning, she said. Xiao Qingzi laughed. You can say both. After all, being shameless is for your sake, and being crafty is also for your sake. I'm in no hurry for an answer. Ms. Qing can think it over carefully. I'll be away on a business trip, so Ms. Qing can give me a reply when I get back in a week. It won't be too late. After Qing Jinlan hung up the phone and threw it onto the passenger seat, she was about to start the car but stopped. She picked up her phone again and changed the contact name with the profile picture of 2 dogs to Jerkman. Now she felt a little better. Since he liked dogs so much, this name suited him best. When Qing Jinchuan arrived at Changlong, it was almost 10 p.m., nearly 3 hours later than the agreed time. It couldn't be said he was late either, because he hadn't agreed to this dinner in the first place. So whether he came or not, and when he came, depended entirely on his mood. Well, Mr. Xiao is still here, Qing Jinchuan said breezily as he strode into the private room and sat down on the chair. He glanced at his watch and asked knowingly, you didn't wait from 7 p.m. until now, did you? Xiao Qingzi didn't ask the server to step up. He got up and personally poured a cup of tea for Qing Jinchuan. I've been here since 6 p.m. to meet Mr. Qing for dinner. Arriving an hour early to wait shows sincerity. Qing Jinchuan sneered. Sincerity? Even if he had waited here since 6 a.m. this morning, it had nothing to do with sincerity. This was a typical example of the wolf paying New Year's call on the chickens with evil intentions. Xiao Qingzi remained calm and told the server to bring out the dishes now. Qing Jinchuan crossed his legs arrogantly. Forget the food. I don't even dare drink a sip of your tea. As the saying goes, bite not the hand that feeds you. I understand that much at least. Let's not waste time. Mr. Xiao, just get to the point about why you asked to see me. Xiao Qingzi replied, wasn't it Mr. Qing who said he wanted to talk to me? I thought Mr. Qing had something to discuss with me. Qing Jinchuan was rendered speechless for a moment. Why do you call me Mr. Qing? Xiao Qingzi looked at him unhurriedly and answered, what else should I call you if not Mr. Qing? Should I call you Brother Chuan instead? Qing Jinchuan sat up straight. The fox finally revealed its tail. He had come today to be recognized as a brother. He blocked it right away. I remember we're the same age. I can't be your brother, Mr. Xiao. Xiao Qingzi pushed back, the older one by birth month is still a brother. Mr. Chang's birthday is 2 months earlier than mine. You can still claim that status as brother. Qing Jinchuan frowned. You even know my birthday? He hated it when people investigated him behind his back. Xiao Qingzi explained, I heard Jinlan mention it before. The few times she talked about Mr. Qing to me, it was evident that in her heart, Mr. Qing is the best brother in the world. Qing Jinchuan fell silent for a moment and extricated himself from the sugar-coated cannonball in time. I don't need outsiders to tell me what I am in my sister's heart. Also, stop addressing her so intimately as Jinlan. You don't have that right. Qing Jinchuan threw his own words back at him. Xiao Qingzi sincerely apologized, I overstepped. I really don't have that right now. Qing Jinchuan gave a cold snort. It's good you know that. He took out a cigarette to hold in his hand, steering the conversation back to the main point. Was it you who bought the Hu residence? Xiao Qingzi nodded. Yes. What are you trying to do? Xiao Qingzi replied, since I don't have the right, I naturally tried to find ways to earn that right. Damn, Qing Jinchuan cursed inwardly. Should he say Xiao had thick skin, or should he say Xiao knew how to play tricks? You're quite gutsy. Aren't you afraid of getting beaten up? Xiao Qingzi said, if getting beaten up once could resolve this predicament, things would actually become simpler. Qing Jinchuan was so angry he had to laugh. This guy really was impervious to coaxing or threats, wasn't he? Let's set aside those business disputes for now. You should know why our families ended up at odds with each other in the first place. I know. Then you should also know that my sister would never set foot in the Xiao house. My father definitely won't approve of you. You can't get past that hurdle. That's why I bought the Hu residence. I can enter the Qing house. Qing Jinchuan choked on the smoke and coughed heavily a few times. He accepted the teacup Xiao Qingze handed over and took a sip to recover before confirming again, "Do you know what you're saying?" "What I mean is, I'll be glad to become the Qing family's son-in-law who marries into the bride's family." Xiao Qingze enunciated very clearly. He said this to Qing Jinchuan, but more so hoping Qing Jinchuan would convey it to Elder Qing. That night, the old man simply refused to listen to him and shut the door in his face. First, he had to open up a path through Qing Jinchuan before he could stand in front of the old man to negotiate. Qing Jinchuan suppressed the urge to cough again and put on a stern expression. "Forget about being a son-in-law marrying into the bride's family. If you have even the slightest connection with our Qing family, do you think your board of directors will tolerate you? Can you still remain as the Xiao president? Don't feed me this crap that doesn't make any sense." Xiao Qingze handed over a name card. Qing Jinchuan didn't take it, just glanced at it briefly before quirking a brow almost imperceptibly. "The person behind Qiong Miao is you?" He naturally knew about Qiong Miao. It had rapidly risen in the Asia-Pacific region in recent years. The multiple startups it invested in were moderate successes, to put it conservatively. Some said Qiong Miao was able to establish a foothold in just a few short years due to the discerning and ruthless investment foresight of its mysterious boss. Indeed, from what Qing Jinchuan knew, quite a few startups weren't highly regarded by industry insiders initially. No one expected they would have so much potential later on. Numerous veteran tycoons in the industry regretted missing out. Qing Jinchuan hadn't expected Qiong Miao to be his. Xiao Qingze placed the name card on the table and looked straight into Qing Jinchuan's eyes. "I'll try my best not to be a son-in-law who eats soft rice." The way he said it, it seemed he had long planned to become the Qing family's son-in-law. After coming in, this was the first time Qing Jinchuan looked at him properly. His gaze changed from initial anger to interest. To be honest, he didn't know much about Xiao Qingze, and he had no interest in getting to know him either. What good could come out of their Xiao family? Just because they had some family background, they thought they could reach the heavens. They didn't have much capability, only underhanded means left. How interesting. Was there something wrong with the Xiao family genes? Or was he simply not of Xiao descent? For the Xiao family to produce such an interesting person, their ancestral grave must have sprouted green smoke. But Qing Jinchuan quickly hit his interest and said coldly, "You're thinking too much. No matter if it's becoming a son-in-law or whatever kind of son-in-law, my sister will never agree. You seem to not understand her well. She hates eating regurgitated food the most. So move out as soon as possible, otherwise, be careful of getting dragged into a dark alley one night and beaten up." After acting tough and threatening the man, Qing Jinchuan turned around and called Qing Jinlan as soon as he stepped out. "Hey, sister, Xiao Qingze said he wants to marry into our family." The reason Qing Jinchuan attended this dinner with Xiao Qingze tonight was to intimidate him and probe his bottom line. His sister didn't return home on her birthday night. He knew her well. The only person who could make her stay out all night was none other than this Xiao Qingze. Qing Jinlan was silent for a second. "What?" "He said he wants to become a son-in-law in our Qing family." "I think it's fine. He's probably the most outstanding one among the Xiao family's 3 generations, right? Otherwise, their old man wouldn't have given him Xiao Corporation. If he enters our Qing house, let me tell you, it will twist his old man's nose crooked." Just imagining that scene makes me want to laugh. Qing Jinlan asked, "You met him tonight?" "Yeah, I got so drunk that night I felt like I forgot something important. It only occurred to me this morning. That night, he came out of your neighbor's place. He even moved in next door to you. If I don't step in to teach him a lesson, he probably thinks no one's left in the Qing house. Brother, you can remember him coming out of the neighbor's place, but you forgot he carried you upstairs princess style," Qing Jinlan said. Qing Jinchuan was stunned. What? In a flash, something struck his brain. Damn. The call was ended right after. Qing Jinlan stroked the phone screen. After a while, she sent a WeChat message, "You said you went on a business trip." She shouldn't have believed him. When he said he went on a business trip, she thought he really went. There wasn't a single truthful word from his mouth. Xiao Qingze replied very quickly with a video call. Qing Jinlan accepted the call and placed the phone on the table. Xiao Qingze appeared on the screen, speaking to the ceiling with a laugh in his voice. "It was my mistake for not reporting my itinerary to you in time or making it clear when exactly I would be away on business. I'm taking a 1 a.m. flight and just had dinner with your older brother, and now I've just arrived at the airport. The landing time is... Ching Jinlan cut him off. You don't need to report your itinerary to me. Of course I should, a prospective boyfriend should report his travel plans too. I'll be more considerate next time. Ching Jinlan didn't want to go around in circles with him on this topic. She had sent that message on impulse just now, as if she really was checking up on him. She saw Ching Liqui come out from the bedroom and hand her the phone. Your dad is on the phone looking for you. Ching Liqui had come running out as soon as she heard her dad's voice. She took the phone happily and told her dad everything she had done today at preschool, how many bowls of rice she ate for dinner, how long she played the piano, and more. By the end of the call she had run over to the window, using the curtains as a makeshift castle to enclose herself as she whispered to her dad, "Dad, are you and Mom dating?" She thought she might have overheard something about a boyfriend just now. Xiao Qingze replied, "I'd say I want to date your mom." Ah. Ching Liqui threw open the curtains and yelled loudly to her mom, "Mom, Dad said he wants to date you." Ching Jinlan pretended to stay calm as she ate an apple and replied to her daughter, "Mom knows." Ching Liqui ran back to her mom's side and whispered, "Mom, do you want to date Dad?" No matter how soft she kept her voice, the person on the other end of the phone could hear everything crystal clear. Before Ching Jinlan could think of how to distract the little princess's attention, Ching Liqui had already been drawn in by the words on the screen. As she was talking, her hand accidentally tapped the phone screen, minimizing the video call window and revealing the WeChat conversation screen. Ching Liqui's eyes went wide as she read the name on the chat screen. "Mom, why is Dad a bad man?" Ching Jinlan. "Oh, I get it now." Ching Liqui didn't wait for her mom to answer before having a sudden realization, this must be what they call loving insults. "Mom, you and Dad are dating." Her grandma sometimes called her grandpa stubborn old man, and her big uncle said that was them flirting. Xiao Qingze let out a soft laugh. Little Liqui is so clever. Well, that's all for this part. See in the next video.